Hey, there he is.
Hey, guys, sorry that I'm walking in here late. I was in a meeting with the assistant director of the program, having some meaningful conversation about certain things that we can do moving forward to make the experience better for you guys.
Well, let's hear it.
Well, I don't want to get into that because it took me an hour and a half, and that would bite into our time seriously. What I have instead, much to my excitement, is one of the creators of and curators of the Love Your Shorts Film Festival, which happens every year. It is based in Sanford, Florida. And I have personally been involved with it before as a panelist, meeting with filmmakers that come from all over the country and the world at this point. And they converge on this festival in Sanford, which is a wonderful little town, and have a really good time sharing ideas and looking at things. And so we have Gene Kruckmeyer here today to talk to you folks about that festival. And since we couldn't get Noam in here personally, I have his interview and his presentation for you guys on video that you can watch on your own time. And you can get a little bit of background on that story. And then we have Mr. Kruckmeyer here to talk to you about Love Your Shorts and talk to you about the festival atmosphere and environment that we have here in Orlando, and talk to you about some of those options.
All right. Well, this will come in handy for the midterm project I got.
Good.
Doing the film festivals.
Very good. I'm wondering if I lost some of the members of the audience by arriving late. It's unfortunate if that's the case.
I went on Discord and told everyone that class has begun.
Okay. All right. So I appreciate that. Thanks for covering for me. Do we have Gene mic'd up yet? There's Jorge.
Because that answers your question.
He may be standing by. I told him to expect to come on about 3:15, 3:20. So he may be preparing his notes and so forth at this point. That'll give us a little extra time for folks to file in, which is totally fine on my end. So
Well,
how are you guys doing this afternoon? How's everything in the capstone world?
Well, I do have a question I've been holding on to.
Okay.
You might not know the answer to this, but we'll see, because I don't usually see many movies that do this. Let's say you want to license a Weird Al song for one of your movies. One of his parodies. Do you license just him, or do you have to license both him and the one who he's parodying?
Well, you have to talk to Weird Al's representation. His business agent or his manager will handle questions of licensing of his content, and then he'll have a contract specific to dealing with production and what assets you want to use and how you want to use them and so forth. The contracts are not the same. They'll vary from project to project and from tier to tier. So, they may have a contract or a licensing agreement that they can offer you at the level of a student film, for instance, which would be a different contract completely to the kind of thing that they would offer to a studio at the studio level, let's say for a TV series or a program, a feature, or a TV show. So you have to talk to his business agent, and they'll negotiate those particulars with you based on your project.
I see. All right. Appreciate that.
Licensing is typically a case-by-case situation. So the worst thing in the world for any creative selling IP to do would be to try to have one size fits all, because obviously the default position would be the largest client possible, therefore the highest rate. And that alienates a lot of people that at lower budget levels that might want to have simpler means of access to that material with a little bit less money, but in earnest, they're offering what they have, what they can afford. And sometimes it works in an artist's best interest to try and accommodate those low budget clients, because it's still exposure for them, even at a micro budget level. So this is why we have, for instance, SAG low budget agreements for low budget filmmakers. You know, if you want to get a full blown SAG actor to work on your TV series at Paramount, you're going to pay, you know, top tier rates for SAG talent. But there are also contracts that allow those same actors to work on small, low budget productions at reduced rates with different deal structures, so that they can service those audiences as well, or they can make their name known to those audiences as well. So licensing is a complex world.
Very much so. Guardians of the Galaxy makes it look so easy.
Well, sure, that's a studio production. So, you know, of course, they're going to make that look easy. You know, it's very easy to solve a problem when all you have to do is throw money at it. You know, you can make pretty much any problem go away if all you got to do is throw money at it. But that's, you know, that's not the real trick.
Unfortunately.
The real trick is working within your means, and then seeing what kind of deals you can negotiate. Here's Gene now. Hi, sir. How are you? That's funny, because I see your name, and what I don't see is your microphone icon, but I see your camera icon and it says it's turned off. I see your name. That's odd. It wouldn't allow you in, because according to this, you're in the meeting. What would it be? I wonder if you should, for instance, try to exit the meeting and then re-enter the meeting. I think you can do that as long as the meeting is still in session. Because I don't have control to do anything other than make you a co-host. I can unmute you if your microphone is live, but I don't have your microphone here either. I can see your name there. Your camera's turned off, so we just have your place card there with your name on it, but I don't see your microphone. Is your microphone turned on in the toolbar at the bottom? I see technical difficulties, please. And I see a microphone in your thumbnail. Oh, there you are. I see you, I see your image, but again, I don't, do you should have a toolbar at the bottom of your page, and all the way to the left on the bottom are your audio parameters. You should be able to turn your microphone on. Do you have your microphone turned on in your control panel? No, chat's, I mean, chat will give you a box you can type into, but it's all the way to the left is the microphone icon. And if you hit the caret, it should give you a whole string, a whole menu of audio profiles that you can adjust in a pull down menu. Yes. If you want to use the computer audio, you'll hear it on your computer speakers. You also have to engage your computer microphone. There should be a question there asking to, or tick a box that says use the onboard microphone. I'm going to open my profile to see if I can figure out what you got going on here. So when I click mine, for instance, I have MacBook Pro microphone checked, which is the onboard microphone for the laptop. And then I have MacBook Pro speakers checked so that I can hear you through my onboard laptop speakers and talk to you through my onboard MacBook microphone. So you should have the same boxes that you can tick in your own audio menu in your toolbar. And if you have those boxes ticked inside Zoom, what you might have to do is activate your onboard microphone in your own system preferences for the laptop itself or for your desktop. Go into your own system preferences and make sure your onboard microphone is activated, because it might be turned off or muted. I'm going to do this in the meantime. For the rest of you guys at the meeting, in the meantime, oh, that's fine. No, it's totally fine. Does it, what's it telling you in your system preferences? Yeah, I shared my screen so I could bring up a little bit of your about the page and all of that. Let me try something. I'm gonna try a Rube Goldberg workaround here. Hold on. Go ahead and give me an audio test, Gene.
Okay, this is Gene. This is Love Your Shorts Film Festival.
Okay. Can you
This is the
guys
Love Your Shorts Film?
can you guys hear him okay?
I can hear him. He just sounds a little off, I think.
He's coming through my through the speaker on my cell phone. He's called me up through the cell phone. So I'm trying to figure out now where my MacBook microphone actually is. And I'll put my phone speaker close to it so you can hear it in the best way
All
possible.
right, well, gotta do what you gotta do.
Hey, you know what? Sometimes it's the crudest workarounds that, you know, get the thing shot and in the can as opposed to incomplete. So maybe we can move forward like this.
Yeah, I apologize to everybody for the technical difficulties.
It's okay.
Not to worry, not your fault.
That's okay. So shall I turn it over to you, Gene? Do you need any
Sure.
kind of a, okay, because I kind of gave you a little bit of an intro here already. So this is the panel that is showing the Love Your Shorts from your website. Is this accurate? Is this deadline accurate, October 31st? Because you also said your next event is on the 10th through the 13th. Is that other event where you come together?
This is the deadline for submitting films.
This one is.
For the event that will be held February 10th through 13th.
Okay.
Because we have to screen all the submissions and then pick the submissions that are going to be the ones to show, and then we have to alert the filmmakers. So hopefully they can make plans to come. So we have to have a little leeway time.
Okay. So then the event on the 10th to the 13th.
We're talking February 10th through 13th.
Oh, okay. I thought it said October. So I'm going to change that as soon as I can. So, okay. So this is the deadline for submitting films for February 10th to the 13th.
Correct. That's the deadline for films for the next film festival.
Okay. So I'm going to turn it over to you then. Tell us about Love Your Shorts, and we'll open it up for Q&A.
Okay. Well, welcome everybody. I always love to talk about Love Your Shorts Film Festival because it's something that near and dear to my heart. My wife and I were the founders of this, and it kind of fell into our laps because at the time, in 2010, I was the publisher of the Sanford Herald newspaper, and the owner of the paper owned 7 papers around the country, and we were having a publishers meeting in Las Vegas. So all the publishers were meeting there. And in my downtime, my wife was with me. We went down to see the Hoover Dam, and we stopped at a little town called Boulder City, which is right next to the Hoover Dam. And we saw a bunch of people standing outside an old theater, and we stopped to see what was going on. And they told us it was a short film festival, which neither one of my wife or I had any background in film or had anything to do with the film industry, but they told us about it, and they said they show the films in different categories, and we thought this is a cool idea, so we went to get something to eat and came back to the comedy block that night. And while we were sitting there, my wife said, this is something we could do back in Sanford. So we came back and we were playing trivia at the time with some friends of ours. And so we said, hey, we got this idea. We want to try this film festival to bring people to Sanford and promote the film industry. And they thought that was a good idea. And that night we picked up the name Love Your Shorts Film Festival. It had double meaning because it was right around Valentine's Day. And of course, we love your short films. So it took off from there, and it became kind of a community activity. We got a lot of help from our friends who were attorneys, helped set it up, and someone who worked with nonprofits helped set up our bylaws. And we had to register with the state. We're a nonprofit. And the very first year, we showed a film that became our Best of the Fest, and it went on to win an Academy Award, which really stoked our interest. It was by a New York University film student who it was a film called God of Love, and it was about somebody who received a set of arrows, and he became sort of a modern day Cupid. But it was a really great film, and it kind of really got us involved more so to continue this. And we've now done this for 12 years. This coming festival will be our 12th year. And it's surprising to us. We get filmmakers here from all over the country and all over the world. The festival we had this year was a little bit down because of COVID as far as attendance and submissions and all. But the film festival before that, the winner of our Best of the Fest film was from Paris, and she happened to be here. So we get filmmakers from all over the world to come here, and it surprised us. We show the films in 7 or 8 different categories. There's animation, E for Everyone, documentary, international, comedy, sci-fi, horror, drama, Florida flavor. And the opening night, we show kind of a mixture of everything. And then on the final night, we show the winner of each category. The people who are in attendance vote for their favorite film. And then all the film winners go against each other on the final night. And we have a professional panel of filmmakers who pick the Best of the Fest winner. And one of those who's been a many-time judge has been Lisa Mills, one of the film instructors at UCF.
Mhm.
She's been a very good help with us as a consultant over the years. She's helped us. Also, we promote an education day, and we offer a variety of topics during the years. And your instructor there was one of our panelists for one year when we had a topic about making horror films. But we've also had topics like how to find actors for your film, how to promote your film, how to get sponsors for your film, all different kinds of things. It's both for new filmmakers and veteran filmmakers, just so they can get a little better handle on the industry. So, like I say, UCF has been one of our longtime partners through the years, and that's usually the first day of the festival. We show student films on the big screen, which is on an old theater, which was built in, I think, 1923. It's called the Wayne Ditch Performing Arts Center, and the theater part of it is called the Ritz Theater. It's an old theater. So we show student films, and then we also have the workshops for everybody, and that kind of kicks off the festival. And on Friday night, we have our opening night, and we always have a big party after that as a kind of a thank you for the volunteers, the sponsors, the filmmakers, and everybody that's involved. And then all day Saturday and Sunday, we have our categories where we show the films and everybody votes on that's there. And then on Sunday night, we do the Best of the Fest. So it's kind of a format that we copied from the film festival. We saw it in Boulder City, Nevada, but we've made some adaptations to it, which we thought were better. It's just kind of a thing that's taken off in Sanford, and people seem to have really taken to it. So we're pretty proud of what it's become.
That's terrific. I got the website up on the screen now. I don't know if everybody can see it or not. I was going to open up maybe a couple of tabs here and see if I couldn't. Do you have any clips or anything from previous winners, or is that what I'm looking at here? Festival winners, for instance?
That's just a list of the winners from last year, like the name of the film and who the submitter was, like the director or the actor.
Okay. Moondrops, Best Cinematography, Doomsday Princess. So these aren't necessarily student films. These could be films from anybody, like Takashi Yoshiro.
These are films that are submitted by filmmakers all around the world. Like, I think last year we showed, I think it was like 70 films, and we were showing films from like 12 countries. The bulk of them are from the United States, but we do get film, and we just introduced a new category last year for international films. But those can also appear in other genres like comedy or drama too.
Huh. There's a lot of films here. There's a lot of categories: animation, documentary, international, comedy, sci-fi, and horror.
Usually, every year we get from UCF, we get maybe 4 or 5 films from students or somebody that's involved with the university somehow. Sometimes it's somebody elsewhere on the campus, but we show 4 or 5 films from UCF. Sometimes we get some pretty good animations too from the students.
So you may have said it, and I may be blanking on this. We're worrying about the technical thing, but what are what's the protocol for submission? How much does it cost, and so forth?
We open it up early. It's the cheapest, and the later you go into the period, and the submission period usually lasts for like 5 months. I think when we start it's like $15, and then by the time after every month or so it goes up a little bit. So, and I'm not sure what it is now. I think it's like $25 or $30 to submit a film.
Okay, so that's fairly common. That's normal.
These
dates.
We encourage people to get in early so we can have more time to screen them and so we don't get a bunch of them right at the very end.
Okay, so here it looks like this is the time frame. So the official announcement of the 2021 festival was made on May 6th. And so you have an early bird deadline, so people could start submitting as early as July 26th. So you've been accepting submission now for about, looks like two months.
Right. And we've got several hundred films already in.
Really, several hundred already.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're going to continue to take them for another almost 30 days, so till Halloween.
And sometimes, it's kind of like a bonus at the end. We might add a week or so to let people know an extended period of time, because people are always rushing to try to get them into. So we usually kind of bump it up a little bit.
Okay. Well, that's nice. That's nice to know. And then, so you go through your selection process, looks like over the holiday,
Right.
and you make your announcements of your official selections on January 1st, right?
That's correct.
And then you have the event on the 10th through the 13th, and that's where the final determinations are made based on audience feedback.
That's when the films are shown and the films are voted on.
Okay.
And the professional panel of filmmakers pick the best of the fest.
Okay.
Oh, and I don't know, you can't see me, right? That's
I can.
not on your.
Yeah,
you
but
can't see me? Okay.
yes, and I can make
Can-
you a
can you see-
presenter
can-
if you want.
Can you see this?
Yeah.
Can you see what I'm holding up? That's the award that we give out. We call it the Monroe. It's a metal artwork that we had designed for us when we first started. So that's what we give out to all the block winners. And we also have special category winners too, like best actor, best actress, best screenplay, best music, that sort of thing.
Okay.
So all the winners get we call it the Monroe. That's what that award is.
The Monroe. That's good for Lake Monroe, right?
Correct. You're exactly right.
That's awesome. That's really great. I had a lot of fun that year that we did the horror panel.
Yeah.
So we had a modest turnout, but we had a very vigorous conversation, and it was very interesting. And the questions were very keen, and the everyone involved was very passionate about the category and so forth. There was a lot of fun, and I actually enjoyed going up to Sanford for the day because you were in that building right there by the park on the
Right.
bank of the lake there, and then we all had lunch at the German restaurant. That was really terrific.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
like it's interesting because the downtown feel of Sanford seems to fit that independent film festival vibe, in my opinion. And so I felt like it was the total picture. It was the day at what was the building you said we were in?
It was the old Chamber of Commerce building.
The old, the building itself is probably a protected landmark at this point, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we're in this terrific old building and we're seeing these films, and then we're having these great vigorous panels. And then, you go outside and the park's right there, the lake's right there, the breezes and the coming off the water. And then it was only a short walk to downtown Sanford. And it just kind of felt like, the whole vibe was really great. I really enjoyed it.
It does. It kind of creates a community for the weekend because a lot of people are wearing lanyards.
Yeah.
The filmmakers wear lanyards, and the board wears lanyards, and the volunteers wear them, and so a lot of people are walking around. You see somebody in a restaurant, and people are talking about the movies. Like, I love that. And this is the weird part. I've been talking to some people because I love this certain movie, and then somebody else says I hated that movie. And you get such a wide variety of response and opinions on what the films should be and what they shouldn't be.
Yeah, I think that maybe that detail is lost sometimes on people who think about these film festivals and the whole festival culture. Some of these film festivals are actually, truly destinations. So like Cannes Festival, for instance, and Park City and Sundance and South by Southwest, Tribeca. It's not just the festival. People are going there to be in that environment that whole weekend and just experience being with all those filmmakers in that environment with everything that there is to do. So it's really great that the city of Sanford kind of opens up the town for you and allows you to kind of spread from, the confines of this festival building itself out into the town.
We've had filmmakers meet here and then get together on projects and make movies after they met here. That's always kind of like a success story we like to hear about.
Yeah, I think that's maybe what I'm driving at, or maybe the spirit of what I'm talking about is it's more than just sort of an event where you go and there's a contest and there's a winner and we all applaud and go home. It's more like it's a confluence of independent film cultures that are meeting in this place, and things are happening. It's a stimulating environment, and I think that it's important to look at it in those terms because it means that filmmakers can come together and they can have community in these places for the duration of the festival and feel like they've been in contact with their peers and with people that they admire. Perhaps they can meet new people, make friends, and it creates a sense of community that we don't always get in other situations and in other confines. We do stuff like that here at UCF, but it's always so insular. It's like UCF students meeting other UCF students, and the community is not that small, not that large, rather, I should say, in the context of the UCF film program. So you might meet a couple of people that you don't know, but you're not likely to find any significant relationships that you couldn't have kindled on your own, as opposed to a festival where people are coming from all over the world and they don't necessarily have anything to do with UCF. But they're accessible to you. You can meet with them, you can share ideas, look at each other's work. I mean, it's the extension of the whole critique process that we do in this class and others when we put our work out there and allow our peers and colleagues to comment on it and critique it and so forth, and having access to other filmmakers who are not from your ecosystem, that might have different approaches, different thoughts on concepts, different ideas, different focus, completely different focus in terms of how they create their artifacts, or you know, for instance, how they even feel about genre specific tropes and paradigms. You can talk about the significance of horror and what your idea of horror is and what their idea is. And when you're crossing cultures like that, that can be really, really important, because I'm certain that, you know, somebody with a French sensibility who's going to talk to you about independent films might have a completely different sort of perspective on the idea of independent film than a UCF student. And these are good people to come in contact with.
There certainly is a lot of networking going on here. In fact, we even have a lounge for the filmmakers to get together in their downtime, and they love to go in there and rub elbows with each other and talk about, you know, their next projects and get together. I mean, the one I'm thinking of right off the bat is a filmmaker from New York and another woman filmmaker from Austin, Texas, got together and made a film called Guest of Honor. And it's making this circuit now around the country, and it's getting a lot of awards. And they met at our festival, so it's kind of like we kind of like feel like we've got some investment in that too.
There was somewhere in the website, I'm trying to find it now and I'm not successful. You were talking about revisiting other festival years and re-showing content or something, and it was a more regularly structured get together. I got that vibe from it, but I'm not sure if I'm correct in that assumption or not. Do you have other activities other than the annual festival?
We do in the summertime. On one night in August, we show some of our favorite films. We call it the Summer Rewind.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
And that's just to keep our name in front of everybody, so they don't forget us, and you kind of like show some of the best films, so it kind of whets their appetite to want to come back for the next festival.
Yeah.
So we just pick like 90 minutes of the best films and show them.
But you only do that in the summertime then? So there's nothing like that in the fall?
It's the last Friday of August.
Oh, okay.
It's like 6 months away from the festival. It's like middle of the year.
Oh, like an appetizer.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we've missed that then for 2021. That's all over with. Okay. Okay. So the only other event that you have coming up then is going to be the final in February. Okay.
The actual festival.
Okay. All right. Well, that's still.
We haven't set a topic for this coming Education Day, but Lisa Mills had been. We were going to do it for this past February, but we didn't have one because of COVID, Education Day. But at that time, we were talking about how to make a trailer for your film. So kind of get your calling card out so people know what your film is about, want to watch it. So maybe we'll get that going for the next festival as our Education Day program.
Okay. Do you have a date for that yet?
That's always on the Thursday. It's the first day of the festival.
Oh,
so it'll be February the 10th.
Okay, that'll be February 10th. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's nothing like that in between now and then?
No, just the festival and then the Summer Rewind.
Okay. Very interesting. I like this whole thing a lot. It's and the fact that it's small and local, it's interesting that you said that you had one of your entries go on to win the Academy Award.
Yes.
Is there more to that story? Is there more that you can tell us about that?
We had heard that that film had been turned down by Tribeca and Sundance film festivals, and we accepted it.
Yeah.
And it went on to win its comedy block, and then it won the Best of the Fest. He couldn't be here. He was a New York University film student. He couldn't be here because he was getting ready to go out to New York like the next week or so. But his mother was here from Georgia, and so she accepted the award. And yeah, it was kind of cool to see him, at the Emmys, at the Academy Awards, presenting or receiving his award when he won the best comedy for them. It was pretty neat.
And was it the same film that he premiered with you?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
It's called God of Love. A lot of times after the films are on the festival circuit for a while, they'll eventually put them online so people can see, like on Vimeo or somewhere else. But I still haven't seen that one that's been released yet, for just general consumption. You still have to purchase it, I think.
God of Love. Here it is on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
So Luke Matheny.
Yeah.
And it says here that it was a live action short film. So the films that you're accepting for the festival, do they tend to be short films? Will you accept a full length feature, for instance, or?
These are all under 30 minutes.
Everything's
So
under 30 minutes.
Everything has to be under 30 minutes. So we try to make our blocks like a comedy block of say 115 to 125 minutes. You might see 10 or 12 films, because you'll have one that might be 22 minutes, and then you might have one that's 17 minutes, and you might have one 12 minutes, and you might have 5 or 6 that are 8 minutes, and then you'll have a couple that are 4 minutes. And so we try to get as many as we can within our block, which are usually run like an hour and 15 to an hour and 25 minutes.
So when you, I was looking for the categories now. Where did I find those? I think it was here. Nope.
Back where I think
Selections?
submitted short, it should have. If you go to the selection, that'll show all the different categories.
That's where I think I was. Yeah. Here we go. So, so when you say like short film, then that's going to be significantly short, right?
Anything up to 30 minutes, and some of the best ones are in the 3 to 4 or 5 minute range.
Okay, so there's not a specific category for short film within the context of the films you're taking at the festival. They're all short films.
These are all short films.
Okay. Well, that's why I thought this was kind of cool, because there is still, for all intents and purposes, a month left to submit. And we do have students who are coming into completion of some short film projects. We also have some people that are competing. We're doing the Coca-Cola Refreshing Films contest here this semester. And so there's people producing content for that. And it's nice if they have an option where they can present their material again at a festival like this, and it's upcoming, which is very convenient, because it's hard for us to transition over, a semester like the 2021 fall semester here is August, September, October, November. We have the holidays, and when we come back, we're into spring 2022. And the students are focused in different areas and they're doing different things. And so it's good that we have something that's coming up within this semester, that if folks have a finished BFA film, for instance, that they've been working on, or a short film they've been working on, they can present it here and see if they can get shown.
Even if they miss the deadline for this year, and they're still working on it early next year, they could submit it for next year.
That's good. So we're kind of getting into the ground level for anybody that wants to submit for 2022.
Yeah. And you were mentioning too about grants. We do offer some grants for the filmmakers. We have 2 different grants. One is called the Elizabeth Kruckmeyer Film Production Grant. That was my daughter, who used to do all of our graphic design work until she passed away a year ago. So the rest of the board voted we had the grant before, but at that point they named it after her. And the last time we gave out grants, we gave out 2 $400 grants. One, both of them happened to be filmmakers from Los Angeles, and one of them has had films in our festival before. So she does horror. And we have another grant. It's in partnership with a production company in Orlando called Majesty Productions. And they give out a $500 grant for I'm trying to find out what their categories. It's the grant reading from the program, the grant allows underserved Florida filmmakers to tell the stories they dream of telling. And they're mostly, they try to get positive films to promote. So that's what their grant is about. And we have applications for both of those grants on our website that you have there.
Okay, so I'm on the grants page and Love Your Shorts production grant. This is a rollover. Is this the application?
Yeah.
Okay, here it is. So that's terrific. So when does somebody apply for this grant? If they were gonna try to compete in 2022, they would apply for the grant now so they can use the
Yes.
funds towards production?
Yep, I think the deadline's coming up pretty soon too, so they might want to get that in.
So you can't apply for this retroactively, like you've already shot your film and you want to submit it this October. You couldn't apply for this at this late date, right? This would have to carry
No.
forward to the next festival.
Yes, well, it's for production of the film that you're working on. And also as part of the grant, we asked that the filmmaker put a little note at the end of the film, funded in part by Love Your Shorts, getting grants. That's how we like to get a little our message out there too.
Applications I see here. So December 31st, 2021 is the deadline for the grant application for the 2022 festival.
That would be announced at our February event.
Okay.
So the deadline is at the end of this year, and selection will be made, and it will be announced at the February festival.
Okay, and we have, please fill out the following application. Grants at Love Your Shorts.
It's a pretty simple application.
Whoa, that's an email thing. My question was, what's the criteria for the application? Is it, do they submit an essay about what their film is about or what the challenges are they're facing, or?
That's it right there. Just a short statement about yourself and why you want to produce a short film.
Okay.
It's a fairly simple one.
So this 250 to 300 word statement is the criteria with which they are selected, win or lose. Okay.
And there's a couple other lines below that too, like a sample of former.
Sample of a former work, demo reel for review. It's a good thing we talked about demo reels earlier this semester. And an application, an explanation of your new film idea, partial script or finished script, either way. So you accept works in progress at the festival?
Yes. Yeah, that's what we like. It's for the production of the next film projects they're working on. That's what we want to encourage.
So, all right, if I'm hearing you correctly, then, for instance, if somebody has a larger scale idea, like a full feature film, but they wanted to cut a 15-minute trailer, or they wanted to do a sequence of scenes within the context of the larger story that is not budgeted and is in pre-production, they could give you a work in progress of a partial film.
Yeah, I think so. That would just show what the quality of the work is that they're doing.
Okay, because that's really interesting to know. So the notion that you have to have a completed film in preparation for October 31st of this year, for instance, is not a necessity.
Correct.
Okay. The only thing you would miss out on is the $400 grant, because that deadline was long over, but you can still submit a work in progress and you can still compete in the February 2022 contest.
You can submit the grant application about any time. It's just that to be awarded next February, you have to have it in by this December.
Okay, good to know. Because you've already announced the winners for the 2021.
This past February, yes.
Yeah, okay.
So I will say, at the education day, so many of the filmmakers say that the most important thing about a short film, is the sound qualities. They say it's more important than the visuals. They say a film with poor visuals and great sound is going to do much better than a film with poor sound and great visuals.
Don't tell me that. I'm a former cinematographer.
But this has been a multiple theme of what filmmakers say, that the sound is so important. sometimes it sounds like you're talking in a tin can, or they're so far away, or there's so much ambient noise. You're outside and the wind is blowing, and you gotta, make sure that all that's a minimum.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's basic soundcraft, I suppose, but it's funny that the prevailing wisdom is have good audio. Well, I think when you're doing a presentation like that, I think you certainly have to be aware of the venue and the kind of environment that you're going to be projecting in, and that where your audio has to effectively reach the audience without reverberation, without muddling, without environmental interference. So I guess that makes a lot of sense from a certain point of view. But this is all terrific information. So what do I see here? Interested filmmakers are invited to apply for a grant in the making of a short film up to 30 minutes long in one of these categories: animation, comedy, documentary, drama, E for Everyone, Florida flavor, sci-fi, and international. Those are the ones that you expressed earlier. Okay, submit the application on page 2.
Yeah,
This was
simple
an,
application.
oh, this is the email address that you want this document sent to. So we're going to fill this document out, and then we're going to send it to this email address.
Correct.
Okay, now I understand. Okay, and here it is again. And then your signature and your date. I don't see anywhere a submission, an acknowledgement of a submission funds being paid. I'm assuming that they put their submission fee in with this application when they send it, or no?
Submission fee? It doesn't cost anything to apply. Is that what
So,
you're saying?
yeah, when do they need to come up with the funds for the submission fee then, after they've been notified of selection?
We don't charge a fee to apply for a grant. We give out the grant for the filmmakers so they can use it toward their next project.
Okay, so this doesn't have to go in with the initial, does this go in with the initial application though for the festival?
Yes, yeah. I mean, there's nothing that doesn't cost anything to apply for a grant.
Okay, but it does to get the film into the festival, and you want to.
Yeah, when somebody wants to submit a film, yeah, we do. It's the regular entry fee.
And then you're going to include
which is
this as
minor.
This becomes a supplement to the application then, right? The application for the grant, the application.
There's really no connection between the application for the grant and submission to the festival. There's just no connection really.
But you're not going to award a grant to somebody who's not screening in the festival, right?
There's no connection. Sometimes people might get the grant, but they don't submit a film, or they might submit a film and didn't get accepted. So just because they accept the grant doesn't mean they're going to get accepted into our festival.
Okay.
It still has to be a good film.
Okay, so they might win the grant, but then the film that they make using that grant may or may not make it. It's not a shoe-in that film then becomes accepted into the festival.
That's correct.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
The film's got to stand on its own.
That's good to know.
And as the filmmakers like to say, it's your business card to the world. Let everybody know who you are and what you're doing.
Okay, so winning this grant is then not contingent upon being allowed to screen at the festival. You have to win merits in both of those areas in order to get into the festival.
That's correct.
Okay, all right, well, that's good to know. If I get back to I think that was all of the become a sponsor. This is for us. Filmmaker grant, submit your film. We talked about that. Volunteer work. That was the other thing I wanted to ask you about. So students could also, what's this? Signup.com. Huh. Not sure what that link is. Is this you guys? I went to,
I saw it, but I don't know what that is either.
yeah, very strange. Let me see if I can get this page off here. Uh-oh, I closed out that tab and I shouldn't have. Okay.
There are several film festivals in Central Florida. Of course, the biggest one is the Florida Film Festival over at Penzion. But there's also Central Florida Film Festival. There's one in Winter Garden. There's one in Orlando Film Festival. We're the best, of course.
That's what I was gonna say. You're plugging the competition now.
but there are several around, and I would encourage students to go to a few just to see what goes on in there, and you can judge your films by looking at other films. I mean, I've seen thousands of films over the years from submissions.
Yeah.
And you can know right away whether a film is going to be good or bad within the first 20 seconds, because the sound quality is not there, or it's visually, poor, and sometimes, these are short films too. You don't want to spend the first 3 minutes putting credits in your film. You get to the film so people know what's going on, and likewise, don't do the lengthy credits at the end. These are short films. People that are in these films likely are not going to name stars anyway, and don't try to do everything yourself. Often the films I see are someone who is the editor, the cinematographer, the actor. He did everything. What he didn't do is get somebody outside of his family to look at the film and say, "This is not a very good film." Get somebody else to look at the film and say, you need to do this, or you need to do that, or you have to get an unbiased viewer to give you some honest opinion.
I agree. I absolutely agree. Here's one question that I thought of that I'm not sure will come up. What are your submission criteria for the specs? What kind of files or media do you accept in the festival?
Well, here's when films are submitted, it goes to us. I mean, different film festivals may do different procedures, but to us, we go through an organization called Film Freeway, and that's an online film entry system where filmmakers can go on for free and submit their films to festivals. It costs festivals a certain amount to be on it. The bigger you are, the more they charge. So it depends on how big you are as a film festival.
Okay.
So it costs us to be listed on Film Freeway, but for the filmmakers, they can go on there and they'll see hundreds of festivals, and they'll say, "Oh, this sounds interesting," or "This is a place I'd like to enter my film." So they go through the list, and that's how they submit their films, and that's how we see them.
All right. I'm looking on the website right now under Browse Festivals.
Right.
Is there a way to find your listing quickly, or is it
up at the top there's a queue. I mean, a magnifying glass. I think you can just type in our name there.
Oh, okay. Just do it by your name. Okay. Love your shorts. There, indie shorts. Oh, I missed the L.
There's thousands of festivals on there.
Oh, here you are. Here we
There
go.
we are. Yeah.
Great. So it's easiest then to probably just search up here for the festival you want rather than scanning through all of these if there's literally thousands of them.
It's kind of fun to go through too and see where they are. And I think they say their bio says how long they've been in business, or so you kind of get an idea. Something that's been around. I read one time that most film festivals don't last past 3 years.
Yeah.
So because it's hard work and people lose interest and things just kind of fall apart. But we've been going for 12 years now. So I see right under our name it says 12 years. So you can see the one below us is like 8 years.
Yeah.
So
What does gold mean, Gene?
I forgot what the percentage was. We're like in the top 5% of the festivals that got favorable responses from filmmakers.
Okay. So this is based on filmmakers' opinion of their experience working with you.
Correct.
Great. Because not everybody has it. I'm looking
about
about half of the people don't have a gold star rating. So that must mean that for one reason or another, there was complications, issues, customer service.
I see a bunch there in a row that they didn't have that.
Yeah.
As you're going through.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun to look at their all logos too, all the different graphics that people put out.
Yeah, someone's piggybacking on your idea.
Yeah, they're only 3 years. Hey, they're following us.
So students can either use your direct application process on your own website, or they can submit here.
Well, the application on the website is for the grants. To enter the festival, you have to go into Film Freeway.
Oh, you have to do it here. Everybody does. Okay.
Right.
Well, that's good. I'm glad we,
That's how we keep track. That's how we keep track of all the films that are coming in, and that's how we screen them. And when we're going to review the films ahead of time to pick the ones that are going to be in, we go to Film Freeway, and then this time of year we get in like 5 to 8 everyday films as we're going through. So we have to go through and keep everything in track, and we score them on there. So when we go back to have our meeting at the end of the submission period, we can pick the films, and we know how long they are. We can't put in 3 28-minute movies in 1 hour and 15-minute block because it wouldn't leave room for anything else.
right.
So sometimes maybe the best film didn't get in because it may have already been in a block with another 28-minute movie, but you don't want to put in 2 long ones because you're not going to get any time for any of the shorter ones. So
Sure.
some of the better ones, some of the better films have been shorter films too. I'd say don't make them. Generally, I think the best films are like in the 6 to 10 minute range.
That's interesting. I see this is a rollover. I didn't realize that before. So that's how you get to this website instead of searching the way I did, and then just
Correct.
search for Love Your Shorts and you're good to go.
Right. You can look on our site and it'll take you to this.
All right. So my other question was, can I see this, come on, what are you doing? Here we go. In the About tab here, there was this great little 1.5-minute blurb on the festival, the one that you just had this year. Can I go ahead and show this really quick so
Sure.
we can take a look? And I'm going to go big screen on this, and I'm going to hit play, and let's see what this is all about.
At the Love Your Shorts Film Festival, one of the things that I just adore is how the city has seen the growth of this festival, and now they're making the city of Sanford part of the festival.
Love Your Shorts is dedicated to short films. We take submissions from all over the world and organize them into theme blocks where you, the audience, votes for your favorite.
We've been told by everyone here that we are being spoiled and not to expect this kind of royal treatment at future festivals.
I'm so proud that the festival has been doing this in the heart of my town for over 10 years.
My name's Sabine Crossan. I'm from Paris, France, and I came by way of several planes, trains, and automobiles. Sorry, it's because it's got version. I found Love Your Shorts on Film Freeway, and I read a lot of reviews, and it sounded like a magical place where they cared about the filmmakers, and I know now that I'm right.
It's the best. Hashtag it's the best film festival ever. Okay.
That's terrific.
I hope the quality is better than what I saw in our cobbled system here.
Oh, well, it is on playback through the laptop, but yeah, sorry about the audio there, everybody.
Yeah.
But that's really terrific. And we got that great aerial of downtown Sanford. I just, I love downtown Sanford. There's a lot of sentimental value and meaning to me because on a couple of occasions, I've had the opportunity to work on films that use Sanford as a location. This main square here and a couple of the buildings that would be behind camera upstairs on the northeast side of the street was a location from the feature film My Girl when Anna goes to the doctor to find out if she's dying.
Did you work on that film?
I did.
This is the 30th anniversary, and it's going to be My Girl is going to be shown at the Wayne Dent Theater.
Is it
coming up soon? I'm not sure what the date is.
Oh my gosh!
There's a movement afoot. The theater is trying to get maybe some of the principals that were in the movie to attend, but I don't think it's had any success yet. But this is the 30th anniversary, and they're going to show the film. So
oh wow, that's neat. That's neat. Yeah, it didn't look this nice back then.
The house right across. I live in Sanford, right across the street, right across the park from where where we live is one of the houses that was in the film.
Yeah, that was Macaulay's house, and
Yes,
then
yes,
Anna's house was
exactly.
down in
Bartow, I think.
Bartow. Yeah. So we were covering quite a bit of distance there in Central Florida back in those days. We also shot up here in the aerial. You could also see a little glimpse of the city hall, and we worked in the city hall on the film Monster. So not only do you have a small homegrown film festival in the city of Sanford that embraces you every year, but the city of Sanford itself is also invested in the film industry at large, and two major films shot in Sanford, one of them with Academy Award winning implications. So the whole thing about Sanford is validated in its own film history. And this little festival that's happening here that's why I think it's a wonderful sort of fertile environment for filmmakers to go and experience this kind of event. So
there's a new film commission in town too. It started about 2 years ago, kind of help filmmakers when they come here, giving them tips on what needs to be done, permitting, where you can shoot, that's, that kind of thing, the rules that kind of govern film in the city.
The Sanford Film Office.
Yeah.
How about that? That's terrific. That's terrific. Yeah, I see you've got a quote here from Lisa Mills as well. It's fast becoming my favorite festival in Central Florida.
Yeah.
It's so intimate and homey and friendly, and there are huge crowds. Everyone's enthusiastic. They're here to support local filmmakers and everybody who submitted. So that's from our own Lisa Mills, our assistant department chair at this point. Yeah, that's terrific. Lots of local support. Wonderful festival. At this point in time, I would love to turn you over to our attendees here for some Q&A. If there's anything that I haven't asked already that you want to cover in a question of your own, please feel free to do so. Anybody here got anything on their mind that we want Gene to address directly?
I had a question real quick.
Please do.
I was just curious as to how many films you usually accept from submission every year.
We usually show in like 60 to 70 films every year, and that's to fill out all of our different categories, like all the comedy, drama, animation, etc. Usually it ends up to be about 60 to 70 films.
Okay, cool.
You accept 60 to 70 films.
Yeah, that's how many we show. That's how many we accept.
Yeah, because I thought you said you've already got 200 submissions and counting.
We receive several hundred every year.
Yeah. Okay.
So we have to winnow them out to make sure the ones we show are the ones that we're proud of to show.
Yeah. But from what I'm hearing, if that's the case, in the next month, let's say you get another 100 submissions, we'll divide it equally into 3 months of submitting. So, and you accept 60 of those, that's fully, you have a 30% chance, it sounds like, of getting into the festival, broadly speaking, and then based on your category. That's pretty good odds.
Well, I don't know what other film festivals do or how many they get, but I think we do a pretty good representative sampling of the films that we show, and people seem to love them. Yeah,
and that sounds like the math seems to bear that out. So that's terrific. So in other words, you have, a really good chance of getting shown in a small local festival, as opposed to going to these high profile festivals where, they turn down everybody. It seems like, the year that I won Napa Sonoma, I seem to recall we submitted to Tribeca and I think it was Montreal, and didn't get into either one of those. Those are high profile festivals, and they tend to take these sort of corporate incognito films that are trying to be low budget films, but they're really not, like the microbrews of independent film. And we got in a local film in Napa Sonoma, and that year, 2008, I think it was, and had a wonderful time. So I think the quality and the experience of a small local festival shouldn't be discounted in any way, because we had a really great time in Northern California that year, and it was basically, it was credited to our hosts, the people that organized the festival. So,
Yeah, if you go back to, if you were on Film Freeway again and you went to our site, there's comments from the filmmakers that are very positive for us. If you go into some of the film festivals, you get some positive, or you get some comments that are not so positive.
yeah,
We've had filmmakers come here who have told us that they've been to festivals and they might be out in a pasture somewhere, or they might be, my 5 people might show up to watch the films and they're kind of disappointed. But when they come here, they seem to to be really thankful that we what we do. As you can see the picture of the audience right there when you're showing your screen.
yeah, it's terrific.
So we have nice attendance and good response with the people love them, and filmmakers, they like to meet with them after the films are shown. The filmmakers who are in attendance get to come up, and there's like a Q&A at the end of each block of films, and the audience loves to hear about what went into that particular film and what's your next project. So it's kind of a two-way thing.
I see that you guys got 5 stars across the board. Are these only from the filmmakers, or are these also maybe from attendees?
No, those are filmmakers.
Okay, so everybody here has something good to say about the event. That's a good sign.
That's a good sign.
There's nobody in there with sour grapes going, they sucked, they were no good.
No, you never. There's going to be one every once in a while, but every once in a while, I'd say we do pretty well.
Yeah, that's great. This is a good resource here going to this Film Freeway like this. Anybody else have anything weighing on their mind? You want to bring it up to the group here, discuss this situation?
Would it be good to format our films for like the 4:3 aspect ratio? Just because I remember I went to the film festival last year and the projection screen wasn't like your regular like widescreen. It was more of like the boxier shape or anything. And I was watching some of the films, and when they were in wide, they were taking up a lot less of the screen real estate. So I thought I was thinking about, like, to counteract this, would it be easier just to format our films or edit it in a way to where it takes up that 4:3 aspect ratio?
I have to admit, the technical part of all this is not my expertise. How about Michael, how about if I find that information and send it back to you so you can share it with your class?
Absolutely. So I think we did broach the topic of your submission criteria in terms of specs. So do you want 8 full HD files, 4K files, DCP files? What kind of files do you accept? Do you accept physical media, for instance? Do you accept digibeta? Do you accept HD cam? Do you accept DVDs? What do you want to take in from the filmmakers who submit?
Let me talk to our technical production guy, and I'll get back with you so you can share it with everybody.
Okay, that would be terrific. Yeah, so because we definitely want to know what the submission criteria are. We don't want people sending you files that you can't do anything with.
Right.
So.
And we do get some poor quality sometimes. We'll let them know, and they'll send us a different version.
Well, if you, for instance, ask for DCP files, then there should be criteria for audio levels and so forth, and aspect ratio and all of that, so that we know we can pass that on to the students who submit.
Yeah, I'll get that back to you. Thanks for asking that.
That's a great question. Was that you, Matt? Matt's our editor, so it figures he would come up with the geek question.
Yeah.
What about Jorge? It looked like you were about to ask something, and I think I cut you off.
I actually don't remember. It slipped my mind.
Oh, sorry to put you on the spot like that.
No, that's fine.
Anybody else? Anybody got anything you want to ask Gene directly?
Or any of the films that you guys are doing, are they going to be shown in this semester's block of films? I know they're shown every semester.
Did we do that already, or is that? Here I am. I'm on the faculty.
I like to come out and see them sometimes, because sometimes I'll see a film in there that I want to search somebody out and say, hey, why don't you submit?
You talking about the showcase?
Yeah.
I don't think they've done that yet this semester. I think is that closer to the holiday, maybe? Where we can find that information is at our information is in our portal our operational portal. Let me see if I can bring that up. UCF, hello, operational
Yeah.
portal,
COVID's kind of put a
the data frame. Here it is.
COVID's kind of put a damper on some things, including my
Annual events. Here we go.
yeah. Plus, I just retired, so I'm not as involved with UCF as on site as I was.
Here it is, fall showcase. Let's see what we got. 0 day, 0 hours, 0 minutes, 0 seconds, still an next exhibition. Sounds like they already had it. Oh, September 24th. We did have it. Okay. At 7
Oh, we just
p.m.
missed it.
There's
Oh,
also a
just missed
BFA one though. I think the BFA one we just did last week. Let's see. Major Exploration Week, October 7th. That's today. I think we just did the BFA. So I guess those are all done for the season. I think there's a spring one too, though. Let's see. Cannes Student Film Festival, that's UCF encouraged to submit short form films for consideration. I thought there was a showcase in the spring. Maybe not. Maybe not. What we're doing in the spring though here is that Coca-Cola thing. So that's got everybody kind of in a buzz.
Is that new? I haven't heard of that.
It's a few years old by now. I think they're 10 years old as well. And it's Coca-Cola does this contest every year, and they work with a production company called Refreshing Films, and the winner gets to screen a short 60-second interstitial before each feature presentation. And there's a different theme every year. It's usually like the romance of film, of cinema, or date night, or I'm trying to think of what they said the theme was this year. I've got it here somewhere. I know what I can do. I can bring up the actual file. That would help. Coca-Cola Refreshing Films. And if I bring up the brief, our theme this year is see if I can program overview, official rules. It's the magic of the movies, I think, is the theme this year. I don't see it written here, but I think that's the theme. Yeah, here, the magic of the movies and take a break. Kind of like You Deserve a Break, that kind of deal. The magic of the movies is the theme. And then they're also interested in the theme of taking a break out for an ice cold Coke, And I think they're saying that the marriage of these two concepts might be the best possible submission. So this is what we're doing for the fall/spring. So their submission ends on, I think it ends when yours ends, actually. And then there's a selection process as well that'll take us through to December, where the finalists are announced. And then in January, the students go through their pre-production and physical principal photography portion of the program, the semifinalists who were selected, that is. And then they select 4 finalists, give them an $18,000 grant to make their 60-second spot, and then they do their production, and they're judged, and the winners are announced in May. So, and then from May for about, I think it's a period of 6 weeks, they said, at either AMC or Cinemark theaters, your short Coca-Cola spot will be showed before each feature presentation. So that's a lot of fun. That's a lot of exposure. So the students will be all in production mode doing stuff like this, and you have similar submission dates for your applications and stuff. It'd be wonderful if people could kill 2 birds with 1 stone, but I think there's going to be a lot of branding going on with this type of thing. So I don't know if
the very first line is a brand branded film to rent in Coca-Cola.
Yeah,
So,
right.
so they want Coca-Cola somewhere in there.
Yeah, I'm guessing they want it all over. The students are going to get to work with branding consultants from the manufacturer and everything.
No, it's a
So
great idea. That's a great idea.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. So I like them having options and activities and things that they can be a part of that kind of asks of them, of their talent and their creativity, and it gives them a format or a forum to exercise craft a little bit, get some really good quality feedback, put your work in front of an audience. You know, it's one thing to show your work to a room full of your peers and your friends and your family. None of those people are going to tell you, like you said, none of those people are going to give you the honest feedback. And sometimes getting the raw, honest feedback from a live audience of diverse personalities that you may not even know, just complete strangers, and having them laugh when they're supposed to laugh, or gasp or shriek when they're supposed to, or, you know, have them leaving the theater feeling misty-eyed and wanting to talk about it, and hearing the people discussing your film in the lobby afterwards. These are all very affirming things that you can experience and you can tap into at a film festival that you're not going to get at the academic level, at least within the department, because we're a little bit too sort of lesson plan oriented, I think, and we're less audience oriented at certain points in our development. And so it's good when you can put your work in front of somebody you don't know, but then to have them react the way you hoped they would react or expected them to react, or the way in which you fully intended them to react, is very affirming. It's very, as a filmmaker, it's very it gives you a lot of confidence, a very high boost of confidence, lets you know if you're on the right track. If you get negative feedback, or if you get feedback that you didn't expect or you feel is less favorable, that too is very valuable information. And think of it as honest information. It's not malevolent information. It's not designed to make you feel bad or put you down or belittle you in any way. It's just honest feedback, and you can use it. You know, my edits are too soft, or my film's too long, or, you know, my performances weren't strong, whatever it is that you can work on so that the next film you make is that much better. That's the process, you know, making yourself vulnerable, putting it out there, and allowing your audiences to respond, you know, with honesty about your work helps make you a better filmmaker. So what do you think, guys? Any other questions before we, oh, I see a hand up from Sean.
Yeah, you can also add those reels to those things, those little commercial things to your film reels, right?
I'm not sure I understand the context of your question.
Okay, for the movie contest, the Coke contest that we're going to go in, we can add those to our film reels?
Of course.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
How about questions for Gene, so we don't overstay our welcome with our co-host here? Do we have any more questions for Gene or the Love Your Shorts Film Festival? Okay.
Well, I hope I can see some of the students next February, and if you're welcome. I hope you come up and say hi to me. We're usually shown on the screen, like the board members at one point. I'm still a board member, so please come up and say, hey, I'd like to talk to you and show you around.
Absolutely. And also remember, Gene, I've recorded this discussion and I'm going to put it on the web courses learning management system for the other capstone students. And you may find some follow-up questions from the audience that wasn't able to be here live, who's going to see this recording after the fact. So if I get those, I will forward those to you as well. Okay.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you taking the time, especially on short notice, to come and be with us. I know the students are happy to meet you. I'm really happy to see that the festival is still running strong and you've had some recent successes. So I look forward to the February event. I'll try to attend myself.
Okay.
And have a good afternoon. Thank you so much, sir.
You too. So long.
Bye-bye now.
Goodbye.
So that's the Love Your Shorts Film Festival right up the street, guys. Right up the street in Sanford. So that's something that's out there for you to think about. I like the idea that he's taking work in progress stuff. So if you're working on something now on the outside, a personal project, that's that's something that you'd be able to submit and get some feedback for. I think that's really important. That's super valuable. So I also like that the fees are low or not at all, which is terrific. I like the fact that there's a grant available, even if it's, a small amount of money. I mean, $400 could be your craft service budget, or it could be, if you have to do some audio post-production at a local service provider, something you can't do yourself, that can help to, contribute to your operating budget for something you're working on now. So, not every festival offers that kind of thing to attendees and to people who submit. So that's a good feature for a small local festival. I don't feel anything but good about it, quite frankly. And I think that if you have something you're working on the side, for instance, weren't you working on something on the side, Sean?
Yeah, I was working on the Coke commercial thing. I already got the script done, sent it to Matthew, awaiting feedback, and I just got the storyboard done.
Oh, okay. But I
use a
thought
little.
you had a film that you were working on the side. Was that not you? Not the Coke thing, something else.
Oh, well, I did work on a script, but that's for like a whole, that's a feature film.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Well, that's why I asked if he takes work in progress, because you don't have to have the whole feature film done. That's the beauty of it. If you want to submit a scene or something that you've been working on, or a trailer, or something of that nature that sort of promotes the idea of the larger project, but still gives you something you can put in front of an audience, I think that would be a valuable experience.
I've got this one's probably going to require quite a few people, because there's a little bit of digital animation on there too.
Oh, well, yeah, okay. Well, that's fine. You know what? This is just another resource that you have at your disposal. You don't have to take advantage of it today, next week, or next year, but it's out there. It's available to you. It's accessible. It's got a lot of favorable response and reviews from participants from the past, and it's apparently had some very high profile attendees. So that's, and that, like I said, that's right down the street from us. So that's a real good thing. The other material I had for you was the Dan Mervish interview here. He's the Slam Dance co-founder, and he is talking to Noam Kroll about the Slam Dance Film Festival, talks a little bit about fundraising, and he talks a little bit about things like securing actors and the festival scene in general, and how to make an impact with your independent film. So that's at the Noam Kroll blog, or the Noam Kroll podcast, episode 146. This is the link to that particular interview. So between these two, you should get a decent sense of, the festival environment from a small local to a high profile national, see what these people are talking about. And Gene was very good to mention that we do have a number of other local festivals. So the Winter Park Film Festival, the Orlando Film Festival, just to mention a couple. There is a culture out there for independent filmmakers who are making these things on a small scale. And so it's good to know who to get in contact with, what they're offering, and so forth. So hopefully this was helpful to you today. Hopefully you enjoyed the guest speaker. Do you guys have any questions for me? Do you have any topics that you need to raise while we have a meeting within our own? Yes.
Yeah, did you hear about the possible strike that the president of the IATSE might be doing?
Yes, I did. Did I not bring that up to you guys last week? I might.
Yeah,
not
I think I
have.
remember something
You were
like that.
talking about it, that there were negotiations, but I actually watched news popping up the other day saying that that the president was going to do like one more negotiation, and then after that he's going to officially do a strike.
Yeah. In other words, so what happened was I'm trying to find my Deadline Hollywood now so I can show you the article. The AMPTP, which is the Producers Guild in Hollywood, Deadline Hollywood. They met with the IATSE I think it's 3 weeks ago by now. And they were talking about new media, and they were talking about contract renegotiations for the IATSE. So you guys know what the IATSE is, right?
Of course.
Okay. So the IATSE has a contract negotiation that's come up, right? The last time they had contract negotiation, they extended it for a couple of years. I think it was like for 3 years or whatever. And when they do that, all it does is buy time for all of the parties involved to think about arguments that they want to raise when they come for full-blown negotiations on a new contract. And the IATSE came with a list of demands, improvements on the old contract. And the Producers Guild came back with, a couple of token gestures, but basically the AMPTP expected the IATSE to just take another contract that renews all the existing conditions that they've been living under for the past, say, 10 or 15 years. And the IATSE says, no way, you guys have been enjoying new media discounts on rates and fringe benefits now for at least 10 years. And there's no such thing as new media anymore. We're doing it. We've been doing it since 2009. So, why should you get a discount anymore on, of introductory rates is what it equates to. Why should you get an introductory rates on something we've been doing now for the past 10 years? It's not new anymore. The novelty's over. If a guy's working as a grip or an editor on a TV show making full union scale just because it's showing on NBC or Netflix, a guy working on a reality TV show that's a grip or an editor, you're telling us that those people are doing inferior work and should be given inferior rates? I don't think so. I don't subscribe to that notion. I think if your job description and the things that you're doing, the things that you're accountable for on a day-to-day basis are the same things that somebody on a larger budget production would be doing, I think that the rate that you're doing, the labor that you're doing, it should be worth the same. But what we have more often than not are these huge disparities in, for instance, hourly rates between somebody that works on, for instance, say a web series for Disney for their new streaming channel, right? Well, Disney wants to pay people like that, like $14, $15 an hour. And the same people that are working on a TV show for, NBC or for Netflix or for
TNT.
Those people are making $35, $40 an hour. So why should Disney keep getting this half rate advantage on labor when labor constitutes roughly 1% of the overall operating budget of a major production? They're constantly trying to save money in the smallest area of the budget. The 1%, they're trying to get all of their cash savings and all of their rebates out of what constitutes 1% of their overall budget liability. And I think that's absolutely absurd. And the fact that, especially in a place like Los Angeles, if you're a single breadwinner in your family, you can't support a family and survive in Los Angeles on $15 an hour. It's just not going to happen. You could barely do it if you live in Orlando, barely do it. And that might even be debatable whether it's, whether the quality of life at $15 an hour, even in Orlando, is anything that you would aspire to. I think that these are good things that need to happen occasionally. labor needs to rise up and push back against the people in management and in power and say, you're not going to marginalize my value anymore simply because you're not earning enough profit on your material. Maybe you need better material, or maybe you need to live on less profit than, billions of global dollars, and spread a little bit of the money around so that your talent base, the people you need, let's be realistic. These studio execs, they're not making the movies. People like you guys are making the movies, but they're constantly trying to get you cheap, and I think every once in a while, a little pushback is warranted to remind these people that they don't live in a vacuum, and that they need the labor of the AFL-CIO. Specifically, they need the IATSE to support their effort and to create the content that they're profiting handsomely from. Okay, we're talking about an industry that's, multi-billion-dollar annual industry, right? $7 to $10 billion annually. I don't think these people need any discounts. I think if your labor is valuable to them, and if they can earn $10 billion a year on the labor and the work that you do, that they ought to pay you well for what you do and make sure you're happy and healthy. Otherwise, who's going to make their movies for them? How are they going to make their money and turn their profits if there's nobody to make those movies anymore? And that's really what it boils down to, So I've been watching it because the IATSE, the negotiators went back to all of the disciplines, and they asked for permission, if they needed it, to call an all-out strike against the Producers Guild. And that's the significant outcome of last week's meeting was, if they walk into negotiations again with the AMPTP and the AMPTP doesn't give them what they want, they could say, okay, that's fine, we're going to strike the industry now. And that'll be a national thing across the country. So no place will be safe from that if you're doing union work, whether you're in Miami or Atlanta or New York or LA or Austin, Texas. Everybody across the board will be affected by that. And what that might mean, what a walkout might mean is, there might be 6 months without any new production being done anywhere in the country with a union contract. Now, if that happens, the first thing the producers will try to do will be to hire what we call scabs. They'll look to hire non-union people to cross picket lines where union people are, expressing their grievances, and they'll expect those people to cross those lines and go in and work on the projects that the union people deemed unfair and justifiably picketed. And that creates tension within the labor market, because eventually I think, the union people are going to go back to work. And when they do, you can be sure that they're going to remember the folks who crossed the line when they were disputing their wages and their fringe benefits and their health and welfare. When they were disputing that for the benefit of everybody, and not working and not earning a paycheck, while non-union people crossed those picket lines and took their jobs away, you can be sure they're going to remember who those people are. And if you ever had any inclination to join the unions and work at those levels, those large scale levels, that won't happen for you, because you'll be looked over. They're going to remember. So understand that what the IATSE is doing right now by drawing a line in the sand and playing hardball with the producers union, whatever benefits they gain from that confrontation will affect you, whether you're in the union or not, because the standards for production rise and fall in the demands of the union and the way the union operates. Okay. The way you get proper sleep intervals and turnaround day to day between work days, the way you get fed on time, the quality of food that they have to provide for you when you're working for them, or the compensation when they don't provide you with a meal during a work day, your overtime rates. Some of the producers tried to argue at one point in time that, as long as they didn't work you more than 40 hours in a work week that they could work you any way they wanted. I mean, they could work you 20 hours on Monday and then 2 hours on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and not have to pay you overtime on Monday's wages. Well, that's utter nonsense. You know, after you work an 8-hour interval, you should start making time and a half. And after 12 hours, you should start making double time on your hourly rate. But they'll play games like that. If there's nobody to push back, they'll try to change the way we operate, the way we get paid, and that's just not acceptable. But only an institution like the union can step in with all the power of the membership behind it and all of that credibility. Only your union reps can step in and push back against the Producers Guild when they try to do stuff like that. So this is an important, it's an important event. You should try to follow it if possible. I can't find my article right now. I closed it down. Let's see if I can find it really quick. I don't see any headline from today. Let me try looking. IATSE negotiations. I forgot to, okay, there we go now. Cinematographers Guild to hold informal meeting on the status of the IATSE contract. Okay, so the Cinematographers Guild is not the IATSE. The camera assistants belong to the IATSE. The DPs belong to the Cinematographers Guild. But here we go. The Cinematographers Guild is going to decide if the IATSE decides to strike, are the DPs going to strike alongside of their camera assistants or not? They're talking about it right now. What should we do, boys? Here, IATSE negotiations underway for the new film and TV contract. Negotiations are on hold. That's new. Oh no, that's from March 26th. That's the last, that's when the thing started blowing up. Okay, September 15th, October 4th.
October, yeah, there you go. October.
Strike authorizations not enough. Enough is enough. That's what they're saying. Enough is enough. If you don't give us what we want, we're going on strike. That was as of last week. So I don't think there's been anything new since that. Here we go, October 7th. Union authorized a strike over pay cuts and staffing, setting the stage for a Hadestown picket. That's one particular show. So, the shows, if they have strike authorization, all the shows don't have to strike. But there might be, if they call an industry-wide strike, then everybody will just walk off. But here's one particular show where they've already said, we're going to picket whether the rest of the country does or not, because on this show, we are super pissed off and we want better treatment and we want a better contract. So this one particular show is already going to take matters into their own hands, and they're going to push the wildcat. That's called a wildcat strike, when one entity out of the whole decides to move ahead before the rest of the group decides whether or not to move. These guys they're gonna do their thing no matter what. That was today. So this is late breaking right here. Tony winning Hadestown set to make its Washington, D.C. debut at the Kennedy Center next week. The stagehands at the celebrated venue have authorized a strike vote over what it calls draconian wage cuts, job eliminations, and other proposed work. Let's see what that says. Probably work conditions. Workplace changes. Yeah, the workplace conditions. So there you go. So they're laying it out pretty plain. You guys have made us take pay cuts because of COVID, right? So the first thing they're going to do is they say, never waste a good pandemic, never waste a good disaster. So everybody, had already last year and the year before had a long period of where the work interval was interrupted, and a lot of people weren't working on TV shows or features in Los Angeles because all the studios were shut down with COVID protocol. So a lot of people were out of work last year and the year before. And the minute they come back to work, their contract needs to be negotiated, And the producers are saying, well, you're lucky to be back at work at all. Why don't you give us the same pay rates that you were working for 2-3 years ago? And they're going, no, why would we do that? The cost of, 1 to 3% cost of living raise is fairly standard business practice across the board. Why would we go back to our rates from 3 years ago when I was out of work for 12 months last year and I need to go back to work? These are the realities that these people are presenting, and the producers are acting as though nothing's wrong, so this is pretty interesting. Late breaking, they might do it no matter what. Return to the bargaining table for 2-day last ditch effort to avert a strike. There you go. The vote followed 16 months of negotiation. So all of last year during COVID, they were trying to renegotiate their new contract, their return to work contract. In a statement, the union said the Kennedy Center management has chosen to take millions in federal aid and then treat staff harshly, noting that the Art Center also drew criticism last year after receiving $25 million in federal stimulus aid and then announcing that it would furlough workers. So that aid that they received from the federal government was supposed to be for payroll, to keep people on the payroll while they were under COVID protocol. But instead, what they did is they took the money from the federal government, and instead of paying that out in stipends to their employees, they furloughed the workers instead. That's like, laying them off without pay. Saying you can come back when the pandemic is over. In the meantime, they pocketed 25 million for themselves, but they did nothing for the workers that they rely on to put their shows on. This is labor mistreatment. This is malpractice, malfeasance on the part of these production companies and these producers who think that the workers don't deserve any consideration. And I'm not a stark raving mad communist or anything, but let's face it, if you need a crew of 100 people to make your movie because you can't make it on your own, then those people deserve to be paid appropriately for what they do, especially if you stand to make a handsome profit. To me, that's just logic, but I don't know. I might be too ideological. The union has not notified us of a work stoppage. At this time, all the performances and events will proceed as scheduled, but the patrons will be advised immediately should any of this change. So we're poised for a walkout, folks. We'll see what happens.
Like, how long would a walkout last? Or like, has there been like precedent before of like, oh, we've walked out and it lasted for X amount of time, and then it's like,
there was like the writer's strike in 2008, right?
Yeah, was it 2008? I think, or 2006, one of those two. That's what gave us reality television for real, guys. Reality TV before that was kind of a novelty, but the minute the writers struck, because what the writers were saying was, we need our contract negotiated, we need our benefits improved, our pay scales and pay rates and everything, because we provide you with the narrative scripted content that you create and produce your TV shows with. And the studios and the Producers Guild said, nah, we got a lot of scripts. We buy more scripts than we put in the production pipeline. So you guys don't really have a leg to stand on. And they were like, oh, okay, well, we'll see. And they struck, and what we got out of that was the world of reality television where producers and studios can make a reality TV show, and they don't need to hire union actors, and they don't need to have a narrative script produced by a union writer. They can have cameras come in and shoot people doing stuff that is totally spontaneous and impromptu performance. And this is where reality came from. And they realized that oddly enough, there was enough public prurient interest in the whole concept that the reality TV model has survived beyond that confrontation between the unions. And now we have a strong presence of reality TV on our broadcast television networks across the board, which I think is, I don't watch any of it. I don't think any of it is particularly interesting. But it's part of the landscape now, and I don't think it's ever going to go away. The SAG actors threatened to go on strike with the AFTRA membership, which is the entity that represents extras and background people for movies. You might be somebody featured in a TV show that has a nightclub scene, right? And they'll hire 100, 150 extras to work in a shot like that, or in a series of shots while they're shooting scenes in the nightclub. And those people are represented by, another trade organization called AFTRA, right? And what happened was the AFTRA people were starting to complain, hey, the SAG actors are coming in and they're making an $1,800 a day base. They get a 12-hour turnaround on their rest interval. They get premium catering, and they get all kinds of fringe benefits to be a part of this TV show. But you'll hire 150 extras to fill your nightclub to make that scene convincing for the camera. And you'll pay those people $35 a day or $50 a day. They'll get a box lunch that they're lucky to get 15 minutes to sit down and consume in the middle of the day. They may be kept in unair conditioned holding areas while they're not needed on camera. They're expected to be there for the full 12-hour shoot day, whether they're working on camera or not. And in the interim, they get water and lemonade and a really pathetic tray of cookies or snacks that are supposed to sustain them alongside of a box lunch. And that's just not acceptable. The disparity in compensation is just too great. And SAG said, you know what, you guys have got a really good point. And our people are treated very, very well. And your people are marginalized and treated poorly all the time. And if you decide to go on strike, we're going to go on strike with you in support of your demands. And that was what was happening in 2008, in the last quarter, 2008, I think it was, or 2009. I was on Angels and Demons at the time. And I remember that we had started work in June, and we'd been at work for about a month, and we were told that SAG and AFTRA was going to strike, and that we were going to have to be laid off until they resolved that dispute. And that's when Tom Hanks stepped in and said that he wouldn't honor the strike because the crew that was hired on Angels and Demons was expecting to work through the holidays at that point. And if he went on strike with everybody else and we all went home, that we would all be out of work for the holidays. Because you don't lose a job in July, August, that's supposed to take you through December. If you lose that job, it's really hard to replace that job, on the spur of the moment like that. And so there would have been a lot of people that were going to be out of work for 3-4 months at the end of that year. So, and I remember that they got their demands resolved as a result of that. And the writers ultimately got their stuff resolved, but for a long time, we had work stoppages in LA because there were so many banked scripts. What the producers did to the writers prior to the writers, going on a walkout, was they had the writers working double time to produce extra scripts, and then they just put them in a vault and said, all right, if you're not going to be around for 6 months, I'm just going to pull something out that maybe I didn't green light the first time I looked at it because I had something better to do. But if I got nothing else and I got a B+ script sitting in the closet, I might green light that for production rather than go back to the negotiating table and give you what you want. So they worked on a lot of banked scripts for about a year after that, which put a lot of people out of work. And now the pandemic put a lot of people out of work because they couldn't go to work at the studios. They were all shut down. So these are the economic shocks to the system where the powers that be think that they can manipulate the labor by authoritarian measures, making you go out of work for 6 or 12 months because of a pandemic or a strike. And they think that that's going to cripple you and bring you back to the negotiating table, begging for whatever they're willing to give you. And we, as skilled labor, we have to start thinking about it in the opposite, which is, how long can I survive? How long can you survive? Because your overhead is more than mine. You know, you got 40 acres of land in Culver City called Sony, and you got overhead to pay, and you got, you know, internal employees that you got to pay, maintenance people, you know, administrative staff, security, and you have all those overhead expenses, but you got nobody making content for you that you can sell so you can make payroll. How long can you go without my help? You know, and then it just becomes a test of time. How long this can last? It can last a day, it can last 6 weeks, it can last a year. You know, we won't know until, you know, we do it. You do the thing, you know. Sometimes just walking out, the reality of watching all of your employees walk off the lot, knowing that they may not return for days, weeks, or months, is enough to scare the crap out of the producers and the studio execs. And they'll call you back within a week and they'll just say, fine, give them what they want. Or they might try to hold their ground, you know. You get a studio exec that's getting paid big money, and he's got a house in Malibu and a nice fat bank account, and he was going to go on vacation at the end of the year anyway. He might not really care about whether or not people walk out for the holidays, you know. Well, we weren't going to make anything for the holidays anyway, so F them, you know. And so then you got to ride that out a little bit, you know. But you should be paying close attention to this, because this is the industry that you want to be a part of, and you should understand the dynamics, understand the argument from both sides. I mean, you should try to see the producer's point of view, but I think if you're invested in, you know, below the line service providing, like editing services, lighting services, camera services,
Yeah.
I think you're destined to see the world shaded in that perspective, you know.
Right.
I don't know. How do you guys feel about it? Are you worried about it? Are you curious about it? Does it seem like it doesn't matter to you?
I'm definitely worried about it. Like you were saying before, if I'm not eligible to join IATSE yet, obviously. So like if you know the strike lasts after I graduate, and then I'm like, okay, I want to find a job. Well, they'll probably hire me, but then if I want to join like the union, that's going to be, you know, like you said, difficult. Yeah.
Maybe. I think it all depends on how you handle yourself. Years ago, I remember the IATSE declared a TV show in Orlando unfair. This was back in 1990. So it was the same kinds of contract stipulations, rates, fringe benefits, working conditions, right? The show was going to go into production for 11 months, working 6 days a week, 2 to 2 every day, 2 episodes of TV content per week, 2 half-hour episodes per week. And they had made about, I think, 9 episodes up to that point, the prior season. And they got greenlit to go ahead in full production for what we called a syndication package, which was going to be 100 total episodes for syndication. And the union said, we're not going to do that for you without contract renegotiation. You want to work our people 6 days a week. You say you're going to work 12-hour days, but we know how production works and we know what's bound to happen. You're going to start asking for 14, 15-hour days on a 6-day-a-week contract, and you're going to kill people. People are going to get sick. They're going to maybe crash their car on the way home from work out of exhaustion. This is going to have impact amongst the labor component of your production. And the producer said, we're going to do this with or without your help. And so the union said, okay, if you don't give us these new demands, we're going to strike the show. And they struck the show. And the union guys, they walked off. About 3/4 of the crew that were hired to do that show were union card holding members, and about 25% of them were not. So they already had employees that had been hired on the existing contract that didn't have IATSE cards. The remaining 75% of the people walked off. They said, we have to side with the union. They represent us. Those are our negotiating partners. We have to sit this one out until the negotiations are finished. And the producers said, okay, go ahead, you can strike. And the minute they all walked off the job, the producers said, all right, we need X number of camera people, lighting people, grip people. They hired the remaining 75% from the non-union talent pool that existed in Orlando at the time. Yours truly was one of those people that was hired to work on that show, because I wasn't in the union at that particular point in time. And I remember that there were a few guys that had union cards that said, hey man, I can't afford to sit out the next 11 months of bona fide employment because you guys are in a pissing contest. And some of those people forfeited their cards. They quit the union. When the union asked me what my deal was, I said, well, look, guys, you know, I have applied to the union. You haven't accepted my application. And I'm out here in the world. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm not a member of the union yet. You haven't invited me in. And so I legally have there should be no repercussion for me working on this show. I said, in my opinion, your real concern are these guys that have given up their cards, and you need to talk to them about why they were willing to give up membership with you. Don't come to me, who you haven't even offered membership to yet, and tell me I can't work this show. And they said, well, but if you stand in solidarity for us, we'll remember and we'll take care of you when the time comes. And I said, well, you know what? I'm going to go with my gut here, and I'm going to take the job. And I took the job. And they never held that against me, because I spoke to them about it. I didn't just cross the picket line and ignore the situation and what was going on. I spoke to them and I said, look, you got my application. You just didn't accept it. That's not my fault. That's your fault. And now you want me to stand in solidarity with you after you have kind of dissed me in my application and tell me I'm going to sit out of the work that I have a right to take because I don't have a card. I can't do that. I can't back you up on that, because you're not doing anything for me, right? Years later, 1 year later, they gave me a card on another movie that I was on, that they were trying to turn from a non-union contract to a union contract. And they said, you know, and no uncertain, you know, in other words, oh, you again, you know, what do we got to do this time? I said, give me the card. I asked you for it a year ago. And they said, fine, here you go. Here's the union card. And then they turned that show with a contract anyway, because we all took the cards, and the producer said, oh, fine, you know, give them the contract, right? But the guys who gave up their cards to do the non-union show, they fought for years afterwards to gain membership back to the union that they quit. And I know a particular key grip. It took him, and I lobbied on his behalf for him to be reinstated in the union. And it took me a good 5 years to get Tom reinstated in the union, because he gave up his card and he worked a non-union show and he crossed his own picket line. That was the offending instance. That was the crime he committed. He tore up his card and he crossed his own union picket line. And when you do that, boy, that's like, you know,
They remember.
that's like cussing out your mother. You know, you just don't do it. You just don't do it. Right. And so it took those guys, a couple of those guys, I remember 2 in particular, it took them years to get their membership back. So, you know, this is how the business works, you know, and you can get caught up in these politics. You can be a victim of these politics, or you can negotiate around them and, you know, live to fight another day. It all depends on, you know, your own judgment. It depends on the ferocity of the conflict between these two entities. And it depends on what's at stake. In Orlando at the time, we had lots of production going on. We had a lot of people working in this town in the late 80s, early 90s, who were making a good living from the work that was coming in. And nobody could afford the idea of allowing an 11-month project to slip through our fingers. Now there's nothing going on in Orlando, and this sort of thing could happen in Orlando again. And the argument would be, well, you got nothing else to go to. So you can either take what we want to give you or lump it, because you got no other choice. And that's an unfortunate position for you to be in, because if you don't have any leverage, then you don't have any power in the negotiations. Then I worry about you guys in that regard sometimes, that, enough damage has been done to the world of production in Florida to where, we're going to be lucky to get anything going on down here after a while. Fortunately, Atlanta is very close, and the way the world works up there is much more akin to the way the world's supposed to work. There's a lot of union work up there. There's very good jobs that pay very well. There's a lot of upward mobility. There's a lot of opportunity. So, it's still around, but every time that we allow this kind of thing to happen, and we lose, and we don't win the argument, I think we lose a little bit of our market share. And an industry without the trade unions protecting labor, I think, would not be an industry that I would want to be any part of, because you have no power of negotiation, and your rates will start to plummet. My market value when I retired was, as a department head, it was approaching $50 an hour. And as a DP, it was over $60 an hour. Okay. But in the non-union world, some of these young DPs that are coming out of college, mom and dad buy them a red camera package, and they pay about $40,000 for a camera. And then they go out and they book themselves on $150 daily cinematographer with camera package. Right. And that kind of economics is not sustainable. You can't make a living doing that, and you'll never pay back your investment in that camera package at $150 a day for you plus camera. You'll just never do it. But there were people doing that left, right, and center in Los Angeles in the mid 2000s. There was a lot of non-union work going on, but nobody was getting paid, even close to what they were worth. And these are problems that we have to figure out and solve. At some point in your career, you'll be, in a situation where you might be involved with solutions, or you might be involved in conflict or confrontation. And remember your responsibility, not just to yourself, but to the people that will come after you. Okay. Because if you're the last guy to come into the party and scuttle the whole party, and the cops come and shut everything down, that means everybody that wanted to come after you loses. So in your time, when you're in your power, in your time, you have to do as much to nurture your own career as protect the industry you work for those that are coming behind you, just the way I'm trying to protect it for you, right? I'm mentoring you, I'm educating you, and I'm telling you how these conflicts come about. So when you come into your power as a journeyman and you're working in the industry, you can take the reins, you can take the baton, and you can run with it and advance that baton downfield, but don't drop it and lose the whole bag of marbles for everybody in the process. And sooner or later, you're going to turn around and you're going to be in the position I'm in, and you're going to be talking to a young, wide-eyed filmmaking hopeful, and you're going to be telling them how the world works and what their responsibilities are going to be. And this is the way that it works. This is the cycle, right? And I was given the same chances by my mentors in the union who took me in finally, and said, okay, kid, here it is. Here's the story. Here are the ropes. Let me show you how it works. Right? Because I'm going to go retire in a few years and I want to make sure that your effort supports my pension that I'm going to collect, and then your pension is going to be supported by the guys you teach and bring along. And that's how the world works. That's how we prop the whole damn thing up. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
So that's the union argument in a nutshell. Good question, though, and I'm glad that you're thinking about it. I'm glad you're concerned about it because it will affect you even way out here in Orlando. Whatever happens in LA at the epicenter of the industry, eventually the ripples find their way to the edge of the pond where we are. And so it'll affect you one way or the other. A nationwide strike in time for you guys to graduate might mean you're walking out into an industry with no work. Everybody's on strike,
That's what I'm actually really worried about. Like, oh, I get out and like, there's nothing to do. Like,
Fortunately, the level you're going to be working at least initially, might be insulated from some of these larger economics of scale. But that won't last long, I would say within 1 to 3 years from being out of college, you can expect to be working at a professional level that's akin to what most of the industry enjoys. You won't be at the nosebleeds soaring where eagles dare, but you won't be working in the $50 a day doldrums like people that just graduate tend to find for themselves in the very beginning. You should, within 3 years of graduating, be, placed in the industry to where you're earning a living and you're doing okay. And then it's just a question of time as you advance and get better at what you're doing and your resume gets a little deeper. And you start gaining access to better jobs, better employment opportunities, and you'll start making more money. And that's just it's a snowball effect. You start small and you work your way up. That's all. So you might be okay in the short term. If it's a really long strike, it might have different implications. But if they can, if the IA can scare the crap out of the producers and get everybody, back to work after maybe only a couple of weeks or a month, let's say, then the damage will be minimal and you might escape harm completely because you won't quite be graduated at that point. So I wouldn't don't let it worry you too much. Don't lose any sleep over it yet. And just remember and try to find comfort in the fact that there are some big dogs out there like me that are barking on your behalf, and they're going to try and make it okay. And we just have to have faith in them at this point and support them in whatever they need from us, whether it's voting or writing your congressman or whatever it is. If somebody asks you to do something like that to solve this problem, you should be ready, willing, and able to throw your effort into the ring. Okay.
Okay.
But other than that, I don't think you got to worry. Not just yet. Okay. Stay in the boat.
All right.
Everybody stay in the boat. Don't bail out yet.
All righty.
What do you think? Should we kick this one in the ass and adjourn for the day? I think we've talked everything out at this point.
Yeah, I got some important things I need to do anyway.
Okay. Yeah.
Michael, do you think I could ask you a few questions after this?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Then what I'm going to do is formally adjourn the meeting and then just hang out, Matthew, and as everybody else kind of checks out, when we're alone, we can have a private discussion, or we can open a new link if you want to do that.
It's up to you. I mean, if they want to stay, it's not really private or anything. George kind of knows, I think, what's going on with me right now. So
yeah, like you told me a bit, and but I will respect your privacy and
no,
what I had to. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, George, you keep talking.
I was just gonna say to Michael that that I worked on my resume a bit. I'll probably send it to you by in web courses basically,
Okay.
and to get your opinion on things and ask you a few questions on how to word certain things basically.
Sure.
But
Absolutely.
later.
What I'm looking for right now is, Matt, you asked me if I read the script and I don't have anything in my email box. Did you send it through web courses?
And I'll
Um,
see you later.
Take care,
Oh,
Sean.
I think that's
Thanks.
I think that was Sean who said that script thing. I didn't send you a script or anything.
I didn't send Michael a script. I send you a script.
Oh, that
Oh,
wasn't for
okay,
me.
then.
Sorry. Okay. I thought that was addressed to me. That was addressed to you two guys. So you guys talk it out. Okay, good. I thought, did I miss something? What did I miss? I whiffed. Good. I feel better now. Okay. Okay, great. So what's on your mind, Matt?
Okay, so currently I'm actually in New York City right now, applying for work. And
Where you
yeah, and I'm
at?
actually PAing. I'm in Brooklyn right now, and like near Nostrand Avenue.
Nice.
And yeah, and I'm actually doing my first PA gig tomorrow for a film set.
Terrific.
Yeah, so everything's moving really fast and everything right now. I did, because right now I had an interview for a camera rental company, kind of get something more like in the line. It was called Hello World Communications
Okay.
in Chelsea, but unfortunately I wasn't able to get the job because the person who was supposed to actually train me quit the day I went in for my second interview.
Oh, no.
So yeah, so I went in for my second interview and literally the whole like scope of the company changed, where it's like I went in and it's like the position wasn't even available. They need somebody with more years under their belt. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
But
Well, but you know what, you don't lose hope there. What you can do, what almost every rental house needs from one time to the next is help fulfilling packages. Lighting and grip warehouses need help loading trucks for projects that are pulling big packages and going on the road, right? And so a lot of times they need more help than they have on staff, and they hire day players to come in and do that kind of work. So make sure they have your contact information and make sure that they know that you're willing to go in and do day player work with them. And you might hear from them sooner than later when they get a real big order they got to fulfill.
yeah, no, that's exactly what he told me. He was like, I admire the fact that you flew here from Orlando to do this job interview and everything. And, had it gone the other way and this person not quit, we would have given you the job. But there is the silver lining. I'm going to be PAing tomorrow for an A24 film tomorrow.
Awesome.
And yeah, and then also today I got another offer on Indeed to go do another interview for a rental house tomorrow before my PA work. So
excellent. Who are you staying with?
yeah.
Friends, family?
Yeah, friends. Right now I'm couch surfing right now.
Yeah.
And then I have an aunt that lives in Long Island. So if everything goes well with this position tomorrow, I may or may not be seeing you guys live on this feed anymore. Because
that's one of the two acceptable reasons for you to miss the live session. You're either dead or you got a job.
Yeah. But I had questions about cameras because obviously I'm going in for a rental house interview, and for my first interview, I was up till like 2-3 a.m. studying all the cameras they had, the aperture lights that they offered and everything. And I know about like focal length and like ISO and aperture and everything. The one big key ingredient I'm kind of missing out on is shutter speed. And I understand shutter speed and everything because that like brings more light, and it also creates like more motion or less motion given if you bump it up or bump it down. The question that the job asked me was, what is shutter speed in relationship to depth of field? Because I know that aperture, if you want the most depth of field, you have to make sure the lens is very small, right? With the blades and everything. And then with with shutter speed, I was going to say that the faster the shutter speed, the more depth of field you get. Does that make sense?
Shutter has no direct relationship to depth of field, especially if you're talking about cinema or video, because shutter speed has more to do with whether or not you're capturing audio. If you're capturing audio at 24 frames per second, then you're going to lock in a shutter speed that represents 24 frames per second and 180-degree shutter in the camera.
Right.
And that shutter speed is always going to be 1/48 of a second.
Mhm.
So the f-stop, if you lock in that shutter speed at 1/48, so you're, because to accommodate shooting 24p for audio capture, then the f-stop that you're using for exposure has more to do with the available light and whether you're using supplemental lighting or whether you've got too much light and you have to close your aperture down to compensate, or not enough light and you have to open the aperture up to allow more light through the lens. But, and so obviously you get less depth of field on a wide open aperture and more depth of field on a smaller aperture. Now, where it can differ is, let's say, so if you're shooting in the studio and you're lighting a scene with your supplemental lighting and you throw the camera in the middle of the set and you put it on 24p, 180-degree shutter to record audio, you're probably going to have a fairly wide f-stop, depending on how much lighting you're using. And that'll give you a fairly shallow sense of the depth of field, which should give you those nice soft separated backgrounds that we all enjoy in motion picture work. But your shutter speed's all locked in. But then you take that camera out of the set on stage and you go to the beach, right? And now, unless you use ND filtration, you have shutter speed, ISO, and aperture to balance to get the right amount of exposure in your camera, right? So you'll end up closing your aperture down significantly because there's an abundance of light at the beach during the day. You'll set your ISO to the lowest ISO that the camera can interpret. You got two ways of dealing with that. You can either use the native ISO of the camera, which is what the manufacturer recommends you set the sensitivity to, based on how much noise you can tolerate in the image and so forth, the kind of sensor you're using. Or you can go with the lowest possible ISO the camera can produce. And they're not always the same ISO. For instance, the Ursa Mini that we use here at school, the native ISO of that camera, I think it's two different ISOs really. It's 800 inside on the stage and it's 400 outside in bright sunlight, okay? But you can go all the way down to 200 ISO on the camera. So if you're at the beach, you might go down to 200 ISO. If you're recording dialogue, you still have to lock in your shutter speed at 1/48 for 24 frames. So again, that shutter speed really isn't coming into play as much as ISO and aperture are when you're at the beach. And then of course, if you want a specific aperture that's too bright for the beach, but you want the representative depth of field that it can provide for you, shallow or deep. If it's shallow, you got to add neutral density filters in front of the lens to handle the rest of the excess lighting that's coming through the camera, right? You set your ISO sensitivity as low as it can go, right? So that it's as least sensitive to light as possible. And then you use ND filtration to accommodate the f-stop you want to use for your depth of field, whatever that is. I happen to like depth of field where the subject is crisp in the foreground, but a background that's further than say 15 feet away is going to be in degrees of softness that gets softer and softer the further the background is away from my subject and the longer the lens is. If I'm on a long lens, I definitely want a soft background behind my subject so that I get a nice close-up with no competitive information in the background. For that, I need a wide open aperture. If you start playing with shutter speed as a means of exposure compensation, there are artifacts that will occur as a result of that, using that as a solution. A 1/48 shutter speed, which is what the 180-degree shutter and 24p is, that has a modest capability of freezing motion. So if you're talking about two people standing around the backyard barbecue, having a conversation and flipping burgers and drinking beers, 1/48 will freeze all of that motion just fine. But if you go to the dog track and you try to shoot the pups running around the track with 1/48, the motion artifacting will be blurrier. It might not look bad as a pan across the shot on your TV screen, but if you take that shot into your editor and you hit freeze frame on a shot of the dogs in that pan, it's going to be really blurry as an individual frame. So what you need is a faster shutter speed to accommodate that motion. What's happening is you have motion that you're isolating in the frame, and as the camera changes from that frame to the next, as it prepares to record the next frame, there's an interval of motion that occurs in what we call the blanking interval, the interval between the frames, where the motion continues so that this frame isolates a specific moment in time, and the very next frame represents a future moment in time separated by the blanking interval. On a film, if you're looking at the film, it's the space between the frames that you can see on the emulsion. In video, it's a little bit different. It happens electronically, and it has to do with the way the data is on the tape, or if it's pixels, it's the way the camera scans the pixels. But essentially, there can be latent motion that happens between one designated frame and the next. And it's that difference in motion that was represented by blurring with a 1/48 shutter speed. So if you don't want that blurring to be visible in your frames, then the frames have to be happening quicker, right? Which is a smaller fraction of that same second. It's not 1/48 anymore. It's something smaller, like 1/250, right? Then the difference in interval between this frame and this frame was so short, and the apparent difference in motion is almost not noticeable, because and as a result, the detail is much crisper. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah, I would definitely like to go back to this recorded video just so I can re-listen to your explanation, everything. But yeah, no, I'm getting what you're putting out. Yeah, it's
That's
good info.
kind of what it is in a nutshell. So it's the latent motion between recorded frames that can appear blurry at low shutter speeds, 1/48, 1/30 for broadcast television, or 1/60 for broadcast television. It depends on what kind of thing you're shooting. 1/250 is, we used to call that skinny shutter, because what we would do is the camera didn't have a shutter speed function. A film camera didn't. If you set the camera's shutter angle to 180 degrees, the speed with which that shutter rotated and the hole that was exposed when it was halfway on and halfway off, it was exposed for a duration of 1/48 of a second. So it was a relevant concept. It wasn't a mechanical action. A still camera, for instance, though, if you open up the back of say a Nikon camera, you advance the film lever and you hit the shutter release, you'll see a curtain open and close, right? Open and close. And the duration of time that that curtain is open is your shutter speed, right? Because it's going to open for a duration and then close. That total duration is your shutter speed, and it's a fraction of a second of some kind.
Right, like
1/250. So 1/48 might be ka-chunk, but 1/250 will be ka-chunk, right?
Yeah.
So less inherent motion can happen between frames at 1/250, right? But in order to get that 1/250 resulting shutter speed in a film camera, we would have to adjust the shutter angle and start closing it down so that there was less of an opening, right? And your 90-degree opening on your shutter, or your 180-degree opening on your shutter, would start closing down, and there'd be less of that pie open, exposing the gate of the film, making your frame. Okay, does that make sense? You remember the little sort of video, little GIF I showed you guys of the shutter angle happening? Let me see if I have it in my laptop.
Perfect. I appreciate you taking the time after class. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Oh, it'll be in cinematography 1, which I don't think I'm gonna have. Hold on. Let me look for spring 2021. I think I took it out of this computer already. You know what? I saw it on, let me see if I can find it really quickly in Google. I saw it. I was looking for something else and I stumbled upon it on in a Google search. Shutter speed. Videos, images, let's see. So don't see it there. It must be in videos. I just pick one on YouTube, I guess. Maybe I do the search on YouTube. Shutter speed. Don't see it. Well, the concept is easy to sort of understand from the point of view of a film camera. When you start talking about digital cameras, unfortunately, everything is electronic, and so it's harder to visualize mechanically what's happening when there's nothing to see but ones and zeros. But basically the idea is, at some point your sensor is being exposed to the light, and the light that hits the sensor, the sensor interprets that information into a video image electronically, but we can still think about the duration with which that sensor is exposed to light as a shutter speed. And so if you start thinking about it in those terms, then you realize that the less amount of time that sensor is exposed to light is the same thing as saying you shot using a really fast shutter speed where there was a physical curtain opening and closing, allowing that light to pass through the camera and expose your film. If you can think about it in those illustrated terms, then it helps you understand the concept a little bit more.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not seeing
So like an example, like, because they asked me in the interview process, like one of the best, like one of the most main shots that they work with is like middle of Times Square, and they want to be able to, I guess, get the best depth of field. So the way I saw it is that you want to shoot like on a full frame camera, and not a cropped sensor one. So if you have, let's say, like if I shoot with like a 50 or a 12 millimeter lens, and that's a full frame on a full frame camera with no crop, then that would be a 12 millimeter lens, as opposed if I'm shooting on a 50 millimeter camera and I'm working on a camera that's like 1.5, it would actually be 75 millimeter, correct?
Well, that's kind of a different and sort of unrelated concept.
Yeah.
First of all, the widest focal length you can put on a full frame sensor is, I believe, 14 millimeter rectilinear, meaning it's not a fisheye lens. It doesn't project a circle on the film. It's corner to corner image, super wide. The difference between, technically speaking, and this can be proven out if you pixel peep in an NLE. If you take a shot with a Micro Four Thirds sensor camera, for instance, and a full frame sensor camera, using the equivalent focal lengths for each format. So if you can think about the size of the sensor as a different format of film, for instance, with a Micro Four Thirds sensor, because that sensor is smaller, the equivalent focal length to 50 millimeters on a full frame camera is 25 millimeters on a Micro Four Thirds sensor. And if you can think about a square, right? And then draw a circle around that square so that the arc of the circle touches each corner of the square. The square is inside the circle, okay? And if you understand that the square represents the size of your sensor, And the circle represents the projection the lens is putting on the sensor. In other words, the image of light coming through the lens is projected onto the sensor. Then in a perfect world, the projection represented by the circle will be big enough so that all four corners of the square will be inside the circle. So you see all the information possible from that projection. Okay. Now,
okay, so you would get everything that was supposed to be in that shot from that circle.
yes. Let me see if I
Okay.
can activate my whiteboard here and see if that can help me. Okay. So you have, okay, so here's a, let's see, here's a full frame sensor, right? 24 by 36 millimeters. And a 50 millimeter lens projects an image circle that is probably like this. Okay. So the reason why it looks like 50 millimeters instead of 35 millimeters is because the image circle for this camera of a 35 millimeter lens is probably like this. Right? Now, this is your 24 by 36. Okay. Now, if you take this same 50 millimeter circle and understand how much area of the image is being recorded in this frame, right? Feels like 50 millimeters. If I take the same circle and redo it over here, and then I use a micro four thirds sensor, which is only 19.3 by 17.5.
Okay.
You see now how this sensor saw more of the projection if this outer ring is 50 millimeters. Now, with the same size projection, but a smaller sensor, we see less of the image created by this projection. So what we do is, that's like saying this is half the size of this, but this projection is the same. So this has the apparent, it apparently looks magnified because we're seeing less, a smaller portion of the projected area. And so we'll say, oh, well, that looks more like a 100 millimeter lens to me. You see? It's only because 50 millimeters is 50 millimeters, no matter what camera you put it on. It's the sensor that creates the illusion of magnification, because the sensor that's half the size creates the illusion that the projection is twice as strong, but it's really not. 100 mils is 100 mils, because it's all it is the projection angle and the resulting image circle of that piece of glass. Okay. So if you were to take, so let's call this micro four thirds, right? Now, if you were shooting, okay, here is the Area Alexa LF. Let's take the same image circle again from the same 50 millimeter lens, and I'm going to call this 100 millimeters congruent, because it's not really 100 millimeters. So here's the same projection again, right? But now we're shooting on an Area Alexa LF, large format. And that frame is like this. You remember how this was 35 millimeters? 24 millimeters would be kind of like this probably, or maybe 20 millimeters, right? The corners are just dipping inside the projection of the lens. Well, this is the 50 millimeter projection, but look at the size of the sensor now from the Area LF. The corners are almost touching the projection, meaning that the 50 millimeter lens, that's 50 millimeters on a Canon 5D, but 100 millimeters on a GH5 is only maybe the equivalent of a wide angle lens on the Arri LF. You see more of the projection in the frame, which is the illusion of wide angleness.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So a 50 millimeter lens on the Arri LF is a wide angle lens. It's not a standard medium telephoto at all. It's a wide angle.
Because the sensor can actually utilize the whole lens capability,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah. Now, if you go back to the original 24x36 and look at a 100 millimeter projection, the 100 millimeter projection is going to be way out here off the playing surface. It's going to be like that, right? So if you want the look of a 50 millimeter lens on an Arri LF, you got to use a 90 millimeter or 100 millimeter lens. And then the image area that you see on the Arri LF file will look like the same image area you see on the Canon 5D at 50 millimeters, which would be the same.
Right, because it
image area
creates
you
the
would
bigger
see-
circle for the sensor.
Yes. And on the M43 sensor, the 25 millimeter projection is closest to what the 50 millimeter projection did over here, and the 100 millimeter projection is going to do over here. So it's the lens focal length that and the sensor size that are creating the illusion of wideness or magnification. It's all image circle. Okay. So, but that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with your depth of field, because if you were to take the image from this small projection and an M43 sensor and look at it at 800%, and take this image on this sensor from this image circle at 800%, and this sensor and the image resulting with the 100 millimeter projection, and looked at them all at 80%, at 800% pixel peeping, you're going to see circles of confusion that are all the same size, meaning the points that look in focus and the points that look all out of focus resemble one another. You can't see any apparent difference. So that begs the question, do you really gain more depth of field on a wide angle lens or not? And the answer is technically no, you do not. But when you're talking about looking at a wider image projection on a smaller piece of paper or a smaller screen or on a TV screen where it's, you know, you're 8 feet away and you can see more of the background, and the background appears to be more in sharp focus because it's smaller and further away, it looks sharper. And you say, oh, the wide angle lens is sharper than the telephoto lens. But not really, because if you think about it, the projection out of the wide angle lens is like this, and the projection out of the telephoto lens is like this. In order for you to see the equivalent depth of field in both of those, the telephoto shot, the screen for that shot would probably have to be many, many times larger than the screen you looked at on the wide angle lens. But you'll see that the depth of field, the equivalent depth of field is the same, basically. But when you look at it as a wide angle lens on a smaller image circle, corner to corner on your TV screen with the background really far away, it looks sharper, so you say it's sharper, but it's really not.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's
Perfect.
all an illusion.
Yeah, it makes sense. Wow, thank you so much. This really helped.
I hope so. I mean, it's kind of confusing. It takes you time to, you know, you should kind of let that marinate in your head a little bit and think about it. It's really all about projection. Do you remember that simulator that I showed you guys in class? It was the depth of field simulator. If you go to depth of field simulator, it's the one where you can select the lens focal length. Oops, I got to show you my screen again. You see that? Do you remember this app? So
wow.
What you'll do is, so we'll take our avatar here, this kid, and we're gonna say, all right, I want basic interface with imperial or American measurements. I'm gonna use boy number 2. The background is whatever this is. Sensor size, it's gonna ask you what sensor you wanna use, okay? So let's tell it, we wanna use, here's the pull down menu. We wanna use APS-C, which is also, if you go Canon APS-C, that's basically Super 35. Let me see if they have a specific, nope, they don't. So we're gonna go APS-C Canon, Super 35. Okay, uh-oh, what's that? That's a 15 mm lens on a Super 35 sensor. It's vignetting, okay? So you need to be, oh, that's 7.6, I'm sorry. You need to be on, say, here's 15 mm, so corner to corner, you can see all of that wide angle image. That's because the projection is just barely touching the outside of the frame line. Did you see how the circle was created when we went to 7.6? You see this? This represents the projection from the lens, right? So when we go to 15, now we can see everything. There's no corner vignetting. It looks like wide angle because we're seeing all the information in the image circle. But the minute we look at only the image, the portion of the image at the center of the projection, it's going to look like telephoto. Watch. Boom. This is at the very center of the projection. Okay. Here he is in the middle of the frame. Background looks sharp, he looks sharp. And that's what the focus may be set at infinity, right? But because we're at a 5.6 aperture, which is a reasonable depth of field, there are certain things you can do. You can look at depth of field tables, for instance, in the ASC manual that I showed you guys, my red one, and look up 15 mm lens on 35 mm film camera. So you get the equivalent depth of field and frame relationship. At f5.6, you might find that 5.6 on a 15 mm lens means if you set the point of focus specifically at 4 feet or 3 feet, the lens will have depth of field that will carry all the way to infinity. That's called the hyperfocal distance. So when you're looking at the widest possible point of view on the widest possible projection at a depth, at an f-stop that's reasonably deep, like 5.6, everything looks sharp. But when you isolate the very center of the image and you focus your guy, you refocus on your guy, because the hyperfocal distance can no longer reach to infinity, it no longer sees the background in focus because you've shifted the foreground focus to whatever this is, right? Which might be 10 feet away, 5 feet away from the camera. Okay, when you do that on the longer lens, of course, the longer lens is giving you a bigger projection. The projection stops reaching for infinity because you're closer to your talent, and the background now looks out of focus at the same f-stop. See?
And then our subject would probably get more of a wider or more narrow face in this kind of instance.
Let's say flatter, not necessarily narrow, because narrower is a different axis, right? But flatter certainly on the telephoto lens, because the difference between foreground and background gets compressed, and so the point of the nose versus the eyes look like they're on the same focus plane, but they're not, because they've been compressed by a longer telephoto lens. But if you get really close to somebody on a 15 mm lens, let's try that. Let's go to 15 mil, and then down here you see this little graphic. The person's staged at about 13 feet away. Let's bring them right up close to the camera. Let's bring them up to 3 feet away. Okay, what this isn't going to show you in this illustration, because it's a rudimentary graphic illustration, this person's face would look bulbous and a little bit more distorted because you're really close up on a wide angle lens. Okay. Have you seen The Revenant?
Yeah.
Movie? All right. Did you happen to notice that on a lot of the wide angle close-ups, his face looks kind of stretched if he looks to the side or whatever? That's because wide angle lens distorts at close range and close focus. And the only way to get that distortion to slow down is to stage that person further away from the lens. But when you do that on that smaller projection, they appear to look smaller and smaller in the frame. Okay, so wide angle lenses will distort, but it'll appear by making noses and chins look kind of bulbous. Cheekbone arrangement might start to stretch a little bit on a real close up with a wide angle lens. That's why we like to shoot portraits at like 50 to 85 mils, but this is at close range. Let me move her back out to say 10. See that?
Yeah.
Check this out. So here's 85 at 10 feet. Let's go to 25 mils, but let's bring that person into 3 feet. Or 5, yeah, 3 feet's right here. It kind of looks like the same subject size and framing, but the wide angle lens is showing you more of the background inside the projection. And therefore it makes the background look like it's further away and sharper, but it's really not. It's really not.
Mm-hmm.
But so this can have some bearing on your depth of field. It's still at a 5.6. If I go to a 2.8, you can see the background getting even blurrier, but that's the depth of field inherent in a 2.8 aperture, not a 25 millimeter lens.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a 1.4. You can see it getting really, really soft. So you might need wider apertures at wider angles to make the background look softer and out of focus. And you need your subjects closer to the camera. And that's how you can affect depth of field with a lens, with focal length. Okay.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's all it all relates, and with time and practice, it'll all start to make more sense to you. You just have to get a still camera. That's the best way to do it. If you're up in New York City right now, why don't you go down to, I don't know, you could go down to B&H. You can go down to 42nd Street. There's camera dealers down there all up and down 17th, 42nd. And go into a used camera shop and get maybe just a used film camera, maybe. And cheap lens, you can probably go in there for like 25, 30 bucks and buy a used old film camera and play around with focal length and with depth of field and distance to your subject, and just see what you come up with in terms of resulting images. Could be a lot of fun. What I have lobbied for, and in the film programs that I've always taught at, there was always a basic photography course that students could take before they took cinematography and before they took all of that other complex stuff. Because if you know the rudimentary function of a camera and a lens, all of that information carries forward into discussions about cinema and motion pictures. The dynamics of lenses and frame and projection and all of that is the same. It's just different capture devices and sensors of different sizes.
Okay. Very nice. Well, thank you so much for sharing this info with me. Honestly, it really means a lot.
Cool. Good. I'm glad it helped. I will definitely put this on YouTube for you, so that you can revisit this conversation again. And
awesome. Thank you.
If you can think of anything else, while you're up there and a question, just shoot me an email. Go check out B&H Photo, man. That place is a trip. Just across the river from you, take the subway. B&H Photo, I think, where is that now? They moved again. They're in a new location, but man, they've got everything you can think of: cameras and video and lighting and all of that stuff. That place is a
definitely
trip. I've been buying stuff from B&H for 35 years, so they're a New York staple.
Oh yeah.
If you're going over to Chelsea, I mean, B&H is right, only a few blocks away. So depending on where you are in Chelsea.
Well, hopefully I can stop by tomorrow for a second, because I got the interview at 10 a.m. tomorrow, and then I'm going to be running up to Queens for the PA work. So yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Awesome, man. You got a full day tomorrow.
Yeah, I know. But I'm crossing my fingers. What's up?
How long you up there for?
So I originally had my flight back to Orlando scheduled for tomorrow, but I bought the insurance on that flight because I didn't know if I was going to get this job. And then so I have another flight scheduled for Saturday after my PA gig. But now today I just got this other job offer to come and interview in Chelsea for this other rental house company. So, and they seem like it's more like returns and everything. So I'd be looking out for damages or anything that happens to the
Yeah.
gear or anything like that.
Do that.
But
Do that right now.
yeah, so I mean, if that goes well, like I could be getting back on a flight from Orlando to New York in no time, sometime this week again. So it all depends on what happens with them, or it's all up in the air. Like literally this last Saturday, I got a call from Hello World Communications, and they were like, "When can you be here for this interview?" So I just hopped on a flight the next morning and was here on Saturday to Sunday. And then I was in the interview room on Monday. So it was, it all happens really fast, but I guess that's how life works,
That's awesome. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you get it. I hope you get the gig and go and do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. I really appreciate that.
Capstone's an online class. You can take my class just as easily from your living room and fucking, wherever you are, Flatbush or wherever you said you were. And then sitting in your living room in Orlando. The difference is after
Exactly.
our
Well, all
Zoom
my
session, you go out and you hit the streets in Chelsea or in Brooklyn, get a hot dog from the vendor or go get some, I used to go to, oh man, I love that place. I haven't been to New York City in 15, 20 years. But man, if you got to be there, it's either that or LA, man. Nothing else measures up, in my opinion.
Yeah, man. It's fun. It's fun. I'm crossing my fingers. I get it. And I hope this trip back to Orlando on Saturday is just so I can pack up my gear and get on the next flight back.
There you go. That's the way to think
Yeah.
about it. I hope you get it too. I'm going to be focusing all of my vibes on that. I hope you get it. I really do.
Thank you, Michael.
That's
Anyway, thank you so much. I will be in touch with you as much as possible, and I'll let you know how everything goes. So thank you, and I hope you have a great night, all right?
You too. Good luck, buddy.
Thank you. All right, bye-bye.
Bye.